Hey, welcome to a new season of the College Football Junkies podcast. We are so excited to be here. My name is Mark, my co host Montana to my left over here. Man, we're less than 100 days from football season kicking off again. Um, yeah, man, I'm stoked that we're back. Um, Montana, why don't you tell everybody what you've been up to? And yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, as you guys can tell, whether you watch Well Beyond the Arc or especially if you watch the College Football Junkie and haven't seen the show for a little while, I am in a new area, new background. I just recently moved, left Hawaii. The last few seasons of everything, swim, of the shows, everything have been done in Hawaii, and now I am back in the Midwest, and I am so excited because that means I am that much closer to Husker football. I am that much closer to all football. I'll tell you guys right now, there was one college football team on the island of Oahu, and it was the University of Hawaii. And I went to one football game last year. It was University of Hawaii versus I cannot even remember who it was, and they are an absolutely abysmal football team. I've seen some terrible football, but they dropped two punts in a row, back to back punt returns. They dropped, and the other team picked it up. Back to back punt returns. Hawaii dropped the football, and the other team got the ball back. And so, it wasn't fun. So I'm glad to be surrounded by some better football, better sports, and friends and family, of course. And we were talking before we hopped on. We are definitely catching some games this season. We might even be bringing you guys along in some capacity to some of them, or at least talking about our experience. So definitely excited. And like I said, football season is upon us. You said what, 100 days?
We're less than 100 days.
Less than 100 days. Man, even better. So we're getting right into it, and we'll get right into talking some Husker football because honestly, there's a lot to talk about when we're talking about Husker football right now.
Yeah, we'll get right into it. One of the biggest storylines going into this season, actually, really starting with the last four games, is the offensive coordinator, Dana Holgerson. He took over from Satterfield because they needed a little boost on offense. They weren't very efficient. And you saw, starting in the last four, games last year, they were far more, they were far more efficient. Dylan Rayola looked more comfortable. They were at least able to get a wide receiver option open for him most of the time, which was good. Now they've got a full off season with Dana Holgerson as their OC. Things are pointing toward a more explosive offense this year, um, and you can see that in the pieces that they added. I mean, you got Dane Key, you got Isaiah Hunter, Ja'Cory Barney is going to be back for his sophomore year. Um, Not to mention the other wide receiver pieces that they have. Um, and need I mention, Carter Nelson at tight end. Carter Nelson is a big specimen of a human being at the tight end spot. So Dylan Rayola is going to have no shortage of weapons to go to. And without a doubt, Dana Holgerson's going to scheme things up to where, if not one, maybe two players are going to be open every single time Dylan Rayola drops back. Um, that's honestly the biggest storyline right now is the offense. How explosive can this offense be? I want to kind of hear your thoughts on that. What you think this offense could be in 2025?
Absolutely. Well, I think we will see the beginning of one of the better Big Ten offenses for the next few seasons. I don't now. I'm saying the beginning. I absolutely agree. I mean, Rayola has. They've improved the weapons around him, and they've also improved who's going to be helping him grow. Obviously, there's a QB coach, and the coordinator doesn't just work one on one with the quarterback, but still, you've got to have the right coordinator. You have to have the right person leading the offense on that side of the ball for it to work. So, I just feel like this is the perfect combination of we've got the right coaches and we've had the right players. And there's been a lot of disconnect on one of those sides for Husker football. We've either had the right coaches or we've had the right players. And usually it's been the right players with the wrong coaches. So for me, I feel like we have the right players with the right coaches, and Rayola gets it done. We saw him get it done last season, even though he had some games obviously that weren't the most productive and that did not look the best. I mean, as a freshman quarterback, he came in and he looked phenomenal and he looked explosive. And so to add these weapons and to add this little bit of a boost along with his skill set, again, I am predicting we will be one of the top four offenses in the Big Ten. I'm not going to say this season because I don't feel 100% comfortable saying that, but I think we'll see a large jump this season. And I wouldn't be shocked if by the next football season we are thought of as one of the best offenses in the Big Ten, or at least on our way to that. So I think we're going to see a night and day difference from last year, because that was one of the biggest problems, was the inconsistencies, honestly,
Yep.
on sides of the football. But on offense, you saw a lot of inconsistency, and then you bring in that new coordinator, and there's an instant difference. I remember us talking about it on the show last season about, will there be a difference? Do they? And an instant difference, an instant change, and that's the momentum you want. So I'm excited. Again, I'm all on board with them improving and being a better offense this season, and then I think they'll continue that and be one of the better ones from there, honestly.
Yeah, I 100% agree. One of the biggest issues with this offense last year, especially, was when they had the opportunity to put a team away, it almost felt like they go flat. They want to hold on to the ball. We
Mm-hmm.
saw that against Colorado, and there was no doubt in my mind Nebraska was going to beat Colorado that night. But you're up 28 to nothing, and you have an opportunity to really put a stamp on things. And they arguably should have won that game 56 to 7. Like that, they should
Easily.
have put that. There were multiple big plays called back
Mm-hmm.
from penalties, which we can talk about that another day because officiating has been a downright joke. But you had plays there that would have put Colorado away. You wouldn't have given them hope with 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. You know, with 8 minutes left, they drew it within 18 points. And all they needed to do was get the ball back, and they can march down the field and score again. Thankfully, they did not, and Nebraska controlled it the rest of the way. But they got to find a way. If you're up 28-0, if you're up 35 to 7, whatever it may be, if you're up multiple scores, you got to find a way to keep that killer instinct intact and go out and attack. At the end of the day, who cares what the, pundits will say, oh, Nebraska is running up the score. Nah, the defense's job is to stop you. And if they can't stop you, that's their problem at the end of the day. Keep scoring. That's what we want to see. Continue with that killer mentality. We need to see that on the defensive side of the ball too, which the defense had another really solid year last year. They were top 15 nationally, and there's no doubt in my mind that they're going to have a top 15 or so defense this year. The biggest storyline on that side of the ball, can the defense be more explosive? Can they find a way to get more turnovers? Can they get Dylan Raiola the ball more in key games? Like, they're going to need to do that against Michigan. They're going to need to do that against Penn State. Thankfully, they don't have to play Ohio State, even though Nebraska might be closer to beating Ohio State than we might think. Like, in your key matchups that are likely going to be top 20 games, you got to find a way to take the ball away. And they haven't done a great job at that the last, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years.
I was gonna say that's a good, because it goes far beyond one season. Unfortunately, that's why it's such a problem. Is it's been, you said it best, 5, 6, 7+ years now of this.
Yeah, it's kind of been a ridiculous cycle where the defense can't get the bounces. We saw flashes of the defense last year. Tommy Hill's pick 6 off of Shedeur Sanders on the 2-yard line.
Man, that was beautiful.
It was beautiful to witness.
Guys, this man saw that live.
I was sitting in a skybox for that game. It was freaking glorious. I was living like a VIP for 3 hours. It was great. But you saw Tommy Hill's pick 6. You saw Sire Wright's pick 6 at USC, the school that he transferred from, and he had a touchdown in that game. Like, you saw flashes of this defense doing some really good things. But again, it was inconsistencies. If they can find a way to shore up those inconsistencies, this defense can be way more explosive too. If they can find a way to, if the offense can find a way to score 35 points a game, 40 points a game, whatever that may be, the defense can allow, say, 20 points a game, or, less than 20 points a game, say 17 points a game. That's a really good recipe for success, because chances are you're winning 90% of your games. Or, you're going to just be in a crap ton of close games. I don't know. Nebraska's been the mantra of playing in close games, the last several years. I mean, we've lost the most one-score games out of anybody in major Division I college football, which is absurd. But yeah, I think it's going to be a very interesting watch this year as to what's going to be different on both sides of the ball. I think Dylan Raiola, many people talk about a sophomore slump. I don't think there's going to be a sophomore slump with that kid. Yeah, it's going to be the opposite for sure. Like, Dana Holgerson's going to put him and the rest of those offensive players in a position to succeed, to where Dylan Raiola should throw for well more than 3,000 yards this year. I mean, he threw for 2,800 as a freshman. So saying that, it's possible he could throw for 3,500 to 4,000 yards this year, without a doubt. I mean, that's a 1,200, yard increase, but I mean, if he can go from averaging, 280 passing yards a game to, I don't know, 400, 425, he can get those numbers.
Oh yeah.
And
he has the weapons. We talked about the offense, the weapons for a season like that.
Yeah, he's definitely got the weapons. I mentioned Dane Key. He was Kentucky's top wide receiver last year. He had over 1,000 yards receiving, and he had double digits in touchdowns too. You had Isaiah Hunter, who was a freshman at Cal, but he showed flashes, and he is super fast. And then Ja'Cory Barney. Ja'Cory Barney was one of the top freshman wide receivers, if not the top freshman wide receiver in the country, outside of the kid at Alabama. I mean, if you look at production. So they've got the weapons all around Dylan Raiola. Now it's time for all the pieces to come together. If those pieces can come together, this team can be really good, especially with 1 year under Dylan Raiola's belt. You have a full offseason with Dana Holgorsen, who has consistently had the top offense, or one of the top offenses in college football, because he's an offensive mastermind. He knows how to break down a defense. So, yeah, I'm super stoked, man. I'm super stoked to see where this offense can go, where this defense can go. Mm-hmm. We'll stay on the Husker train here, unless you have something to add here.
No, I think you were talking about how you think we'll see some changes and some differences pretty majorly. And I think we'll see those right away. I don't think it's going to be something where it takes half a season or even 2-3 games. I think that first game we have against Cincinnati, you're going to see flashes of what you're going to see the whole season. That's what you're going to see the team show up and show out and play explosive football. And I think that will set the tone right then and there. So I think you're not going to have to wait to see any of that. It's going to be right then and there on display, because they've been preparing it and they're still preparing it now. So I think it's going to be something special. So I'm really excited. And I think, again, both sides of the football will have a lot more in this season. So I'm ready to see it for sure.
I'm ready to see it too. And I'm going to add here. So everybody talks about Matt Rule's year 3. Like, Matt Rule's resume at like Baylor or Temple. The first year they always struggled. He won 2 games in his year 1s at Baylor and Temple combined.
Than Nebraska won by far.
Yeah, and his year 1 here at Nebraska, they won 5 games. So they were already kind of ahead of the curve. They
Hmm.
never quote unquote hit rock bottom. Year
Absolutely.
two, year two with the freshman quarterback. They started off the season really hot. They were 5-1. But that's where the offensive struggle started to occur.
Inconsistencies
And
popped up.
inconsistencies popped up, and they struggled toward the latter half of the season. They find a way to win big against Wisconsin to get to a bowl game. They got that bowl game monkey off their back. We won't mention the Iowa game because Nebraska had 23 first downs to Iowa's 5. The only play Iowa made was Caden Johnson's run, that 70-yard touchdown run. That was literally the only play Iowa made all game. They then go play Boston College, control most of that game. Special teams tried letting Boston College back into it, but Nebraska did enough, and they got the bowl win monkey off their back too,
Finally.
because they haven't won a bowl game since 2016.
It's insane.
So you saw this team where they grew, they
Hmm.
dropped off, and they found a way to compete and grow again. It was a very, 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 there was a lot of adversity that this team faced all year long. You're 5-1 going into, going into Indiana. Everybody thought that was going to be a great game. And Dylan Raiola possibly had his worst game yet as a quarterback at Nebraska. And that game obviously wasn't pretty. I had that game shut off by the second quarter. It was bad. And I mean, it didn't start off bad
No.
because
Oh.
Indiana went down the field and scored, but Nebraska was moving the ball down the field too. And I'm like, okay, we could see like a Pac-12 after dark, but
Yeah.
instead it's noon. Type of high scoring matchup here. I'm like, okay, this might actually be a fun back and forth game.
Same thing I thought. Thought it a little too soon though.
Like as soon as I saw Nebraska marching, I'm like, oh, Nebraska might actually have something here.
Oh yeah. Didn't
I
last long.
mean, it's big noon kickoff. It's a big game atmosphere because Indiana is rolling high right now. Yeah,
And we're hyping it up too. Like there was a lot of hype, and Nebraska had. I mean, you said it best. We had that hype built up going into that game, and it was. I honestly felt like it was rightfully so. After we beat Colorado, not because I thought Colorado was going to beat us or was a better team, but because of the hype that they had. After we beat them, I was like, people are going to give us that, and they did. People did start to look at us a whole different way. That Colorado win was the real victory that people looked at, especially because, like you said in the beginning of the show, we were railing them in the beginning. I mean, they had no right scoring as many as they did. They had there's no reason that they should have finished with the score that they had. The Huskers
it,
should have won. They should have had one score possibly in the whole game. If the Huskers continued their momentum that they started with, it, like you said, it should have been like a 56-7, 56-10, 50. Like it should have been a blowout, but we just weren't able to hold on. But that game is still what gave us that boost outside of just Nebraska, I think,
well,
momentum. So of course people thought, and I was one of them too. I mean, I thought, I remember we were doing the show at that point and we did an episode before that game. I cannot remember if I said they were going to win or lose, but I definitely thought it was going to be a good game and said it was going to be a good game because I thought that we were going to see a classic matchup and we were going to see maybe a new, not rivalry, but you know what I mean, when new interconference matchups pop up and there's competition that's exciting. I thought we were going to see one of those games, and that is not what we saw at all.
no, at the end of the first half. So
At least
kind of a
India,
cool.
though, during the season, at least they didn't have like a national championship run. You know what I mean?
Right, for sure. Um, but like you think about it, like yeah, we're up 28-0. against Colorado going in at the end of the first half. Me sitting in the skybox, we sat on the same level as all the media people. So
Mm-hmm.
I was in line at the restroom, and Damon Benning walks up behind me, which was pretty cool. And I'm like, "Hey, DB, I did not think it was going to be this easy," and he agreed with me 100%. And he's like, I did not think it was going to be this easy either. But he's like, we've got a whole other half of football to play, so we'll see if the kids can keep the foot on the gas. Thankfully, the defense kept the foot on the gas for the most part. They were leaky a little bit in that second half, but they gave up a touchdown and a field goal. I can live with that. I can live with giving up 10 points.
Yeah.
My big problem was the offense. The offense just couldn't keep the foot on the gas when they had Colorado up against the ropes. They were about to drop them off the top of the cage like they do in Hell in a Cell in
Exactly.
WWE.
They were that
It was
close.
it was really close. You have a team up down 28-0. Their mental is shot because they're like, what the
Mm-hmm.
heck can we do? And that stadium was rocking. They were on Colorado's throat the whole game. When they were up 7-0, when they were up 14-0, when they were up, it doesn't matter. They were up 28 points, and that stadium was still incredibly loud because Nebraska was out for blood that game.
Oh yeah.
That was the most electric, to this day, most electric atmosphere I've ever been a part of. I have not seen a stadium when Nebraska was on defense and they were consistently over like 100 decibels the whole game. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was crazy, man. It was absolutely crazy. Definitely a memory that I will live with the rest of my life. And who knows if we can get those tickets to Nebraska, Michigan, that's going to be an insane atmosphere at 2:30 as well.
And that would be, yeah, that really would be. That's the game, bro. That's the one. Is so. Speaking of games, though, I kind of want to go through the schedule with you and kind
Yeah.
of break down. I need to. Well, I don't have Wi-Fi right now, so I can't pull it up. If you're able to pull them up, or you have them,
Yep, I
just
got it.
full brain, perfect. We'll go through some of those because the schedule this year is interesting. It's got its moments that are tricky. It has its moments that we should be able to breeze through. So it's one of those schedules, I would say. A little bit
Yeah,
of a
absolutely. So week 1 obviously is in Kansas City on August 28th against Cincinnati. That's going to be a home game for Nebraska. It's going to look really good on ESPN under the lights at Arrowhead.
man.
Very electric atmosphere. Nebraska then comes home the next week. They play Akron. They play Houston Christian in week 3. And then they really kick things off in Big Ten play. Because the first Big Ten matchup is against Michigan at home at 2:30 on CBS, which is a really good time slot. And then they have a bye week. Then they play Michigan State at home. They go to Maryland. They play at Minnesota on a Friday night. They play at home the next week against Northwestern. USC comes here. And then Nebraska has a little bit of a road trip within 3 weeks. So Nebraska plays at UCLA at the Rose Bowl. And then Nebraska plays at Penn State on November 22nd, a week before Nebraska plays Black Friday against Iowa. They miss out on Ohio State. They miss out on Oregon. They miss out on Indiana, a team that absolutely freaking belted Nebraska last year.
I think we'd get him this year. That's the one team out of those 3 that I think we would get this year for sure. But
I do too. And we'll talk about the Big Ten football, spring talks and whatever. I don't think Indiana is going to be anywhere near as good as they were
No,
last year.
me neither. Definitely not.
I think they're going to come back down to earth a little bit. But
we've seen plenty of teams have those like crazy runs and then come right back down to earth, not even a whole year later. So I think that's the same thing we're going to see.
right, absolutely. And you look at the first 3 games. You got Cincinnati. That should be win number 1. Akron's going to be win number 2. Houston Christian's win number 3. You're rolling into the game against Michigan, the next week. You're undefeated 3-0. Michigan's going to have question marks. They're breaking in a new freshman quarterback. Their head coach, Sharon Moore, is suspended. He will be suspended for that Nebraska game, which is the time that you really need to pounce and get Michigan. You play against Michigan State. Another winnable game right there. They go to Maryland. To Maryland is going to be an interesting atmosphere. I don't know what Maryland is going to be. They're usually pretty good on offense, but they're extremely bad on defense. I don't know what team they're going to have. Minnesota is a team that always plays really, really gritty football. It seems like every game they play is a low-scoring game because they just slop the game up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what Minnesota is going to be, though.
Yeah, that's another question mark.
How good is Minnesota going to be? Northwestern comes to Nebraska.
We got that one.
Nebraska should be able to control Northwestern. USC comes to Nebraska the next week.
We should. I feel like we should be able to go back to back wins.
Yeah, Nebraska should have beaten USC last year, and they probably would have if the refs would have called the offense or the defensive pass interference.
Without a doubt.
They were literally manhandling our wide receiver in the back corner of the end zone.
Why has for sports just gotten worse? Like for every sport, honestly. Like it feels
officiating is atrocious now.
It's terrible. It's abysmal, and it ruins moments like that like make or break seasons and games. Like it ruins that. So yeah, no, we'll have to talk about that another day, but I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about with officiating this next season because there's so much that is or that is called that shouldn't be, and it's mainly that is missed though. Mainly that is missed. I mean, there's the moments when they call things and you're like, why did they call that? But there's so many missed calls, and that is the perfect. And that again, those can change the outcomes of games. So
absolutely.
My rant on reffing is done for the day. We'll go back to it.
But yeah, like Northwestern USC at home should be able to pull those games off. They should be able to pull most of these games off at home at the very least.
That's the big key because they at home is going to be, that atmosphere is going to be insane this year. It always is.
Yeah, it always is.
It's going to kick up early and then remain, and it's going to be by these games, everyone's going to be bought in.
Right. After USC, Nebraska goes to UCLA. And Nebraska is probably going to travel very well. They're going to probably have more fans in the stands than UCLA will. That's another team with a question mark around their name is UCLA.
For sure.
UCLA showed flashes last year, but they also weren't very good. Nebraska should have beaten UCLA. I was in Iowa State. I was at the Iowa State game, Iowa State, Texas Tech.
Oh, yeah. Man,
when UCLA was playing Nebraska, and I saw the score, and I'm like, there's no way UCLA is up 20-7 right now. And then Nebraska tried sneaking their way back, but it was too little too late. Nebraska goes to Penn State. Penn State needs no introduction. It's going to be a tough atmosphere.
Yeah.
How does sophomore Dylan Raiola react to that atmosphere?
I don't think he reacts. I mean, I think he's going to be better this season because we saw last year, obviously he didn't go to that type of atmosphere, but we saw him
at the Horseshoe.
Yeah, true. Very true.
Ohio State, and he handled that pretty well.
He did handle that pretty well. I don't think he'll handle it poorly. I don't know. I think the Huskers are losing that game, regardless of how he handles it. I think that's one game the Huskers will not win. Up until this point, the only other game that I would say I don't think they're going to win, like, is Michigan. But even that one, because it's at home and because this isn't the Michigan team from a few seasons ago. I mean, this is definitely a Michigan team that, yes, they still have strength and they still have a little bit of notoriety, but they're not that national championship team. They're not one of those more competitive early 2010 teams. It's definitely a team that we can handle. So honestly, Penn State for me is that first one that I'm sitting here and saying, I think this is the one that we lose. Not for sure, but I'm pretty sure we will. Because again, the environment. Now, you did make a good point about handling Ohio State, because that is obviously one of the hardest ones to handle. And that was a game that was competitive and was decently close for what it was. And so that is a good point, but I do think we'll see a little bit of a struggle, and I do think the Huskers will lose, but it won't be a blowout. I don't think the Huskers lose any games in the style of like a 3+ score loss this season. I think every game we play, win or lose, will be competitive. Some games, like, again, like, what did you say? Houston Christian, is that the third one? That should be a 30+ point win. Like, it'll
Akron should be the same way.
same, exactly. Cincinnati might be a little bit closer, but we should still win by 2+ scores, I would say. I would give us 2 to even 3 scores against Cincinnati. But again, Penn State, I think it'll be close. It'll go down to the wire. I'm giving it to Penn State, but I think that's the first game of this upcoming schedule that I'm just giving to another team right off the bat. Every other game, I'm either like we're definitely going to handle that, or we should if we're handling our business.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm pulling up
But
the. Oh, go on.
No, Penn State at home, like, that's an environment that is hard for any quarterback or any team to handle if they show up and show out. And when they're competitive, it's even worse. And so I assume that'll be somewhat of what that looks like. But again, you never know. It could be Huskers could come out calm, collected, and they could come out ranked and have momentum and be undefeated. And then that's maybe a whole different game, honestly.
Absolutely. I'm just looking at the early spread for Nebraska Cincinnati week 1.
Sweet.
Right now, Nebraska is an early 6.5 point favorite. The over under is 50.5 points. If I were people, I would just hammer Nebraska minus the 6.5.
Yeah.
Cincinnati wasn't very good last year. They didn't really add much this year to really change that.
True.
Nebraska's got the major talent advantage against Cincinnati. Like, they should have that 6.5 point spread covered religiously.
Yeah,
They
mainly is good. I mean, it's going to be Husker Stadium. It's going to be another Memorial Stadium, essentially. So that part will definitely mess with Cincinnati.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, we're just breaking down that schedule. I mean, week 1 should be a W against Cincinnati. Week 2 against Akron, another win. Houston Christian win. I'm going to say Nebraska beats Michigan. I do think Nebraska will beat Michigan at home. Big part is their head coach, Jerome Moore, is not going to be in the stadium. He's suspended. He got suspended due to the cheating scandal with Harbaugh. I think Nebraska can nip up and beat Michigan, because I do think Nebraska is going to be rolling in pretty high. You've got Michigan State at home. I think that's going to be a closer game. I do think Nebraska finds a way to win that one. They go to Maryland. They should beat Maryland on the road. Minnesota is a huge question mark. That Minnesota game is a major question mark. It has been, the last several years, because Minnesota plays their own. They have their own way of playing football. That's where my question mark of how explosive can Nebraska's offense be comes into play. How explosive can Nebraska's defense be comes into play. If Nebraska's offense is very explosive and Nebraska's defense is serviceable, Nebraska should win that one going away. But, it's Minnesota. Minnesota is kind of a gritty football team. But I want to say Nebraska wins that one too. Nebraska plays Northwestern. That's another game that has turned gritty over the years. Has been relatively close. But Northwestern was atrocious last year. Absolutely atrocious. Nothing's going to change because they are the private school in the Big Ten. Facts. It's hard to recruit there.
True.
I think Nebraska beats Northwestern. So we're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, potentially 8 wins. Some of those games are coin flips. I'm going to say Michigan-Nebraska is a coin flip. Michigan State-Nebraska kind of might be borderlining a coin flip. You got Michigan or Maryland. Nebraska should be favored by 10-plus points against Maryland. You got Minnesota, which Nebraska, I would not be shocked if they were just a slight road underdog against Minnesota, just depending on how good Minnesota is at the time. So you're talking potentially 8 wins off of the bat between Cincinnati and Northwestern. Here comes the interesting part of the schedule, though. You got USC coming to Nebraska. Nebraska should have beaten USC in LA last year. Things did not go their way. Nebraska played pretty well, though, in that game. I'm going to say Nebraska potentially loses to USC. I think USC has a little bit of a talent gap over Nebraska. It's not huge, but I do think they've got a little bit more of a talent gap. And I think USC is going to come out hungry. I think USC is going to have a pretty good year this next year. They certainly couldn't have been much worse than they were last year.
True.
So we'll pin that as their first loss. Okay. So they're 8-1. Nebraska goes to UCLA. I think Nebraska can go out there and take care of UCLA. You're 9-1. Nebraska goes to Penn State. I think it's going to be a relatively closely fought game. It's going to be a tough atmosphere. I think this game has the potential to get really gritty. Like, this has the makings of a 17-13 type Big Ten matchup. Neither offense is pretty. Neither defense is really giving up an inch. I'm going to say Penn State wins that one, say 20-13. Okay. You're 9-2. You finish off against Iowa. Nebraska is going to have a better team than Iowa this year. Iowa's not going to be very good. They will not be very good. They didn't really add anybody through the transfer portal that, opens your eyes and says, oh, yeah, they're going to be a really good team. No. Kirk Ferentz is on his way out. Nebraska will take care of Iowa. So that puts them at 10-2 on the year. That'll put them at 10-2, which, you're going from a 6-6 regular season last year to a 10-2 regular season this year. We talked about Matt Rule's year 3 jumps between year 1, year 2, year 3. How at Temple, they won 11 games. At Baylor in year 3, they won 11 games, went to the Big 12 championship. I think if Nebraska could find a way to go through that schedule, like I just pointed out, like Nebraska is going to put themselves in a really good position to possibly play in Indianapolis for the Big Ten title. Just depending on how Ohio State and Oregon do.
Mm-hmm.
But they're going to, at the very least, be in that playoff conversation. Because if you're 10-2 at the end of the year with wins against Michigan, a close loss against Penn State, say a close loss against USC, who I think is also going to be a pretty good football team this year.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're a 9-win ball club this year. Like, you put that resume together, say you take care of business against Iowa at the end of the year too, one of your biggest rivals. Nebraska has a really good shot at being in the 12-team playoff this next year. But that's if all the pieces come together.
Mm-hmm.
All the pieces need to come together.
They do.
I want to hear your thoughts. You know, what do you think Nebraska is going to do with the schedule that I just laid out?
Yeah, so I mean, again, I'm with you on a lot of these games are going to be winnable, and not only winnable, because a lot of our games in the past have been winnable and we have just blown it for whatever reason, multitude of reasons. But I don't think that's happening this season. The thing I will say is I definitely have us losing 2. I definitely have us dropping 2 games. One of those, like I already said, Penn State. I do think we'll lose to Penn State, but I think it'll be very similar. I think it'll be closer than the Ohio State game was in a lot of ways, both score-wise and otherwise possibly. But I think we'll see a game very similar to that, where it's a close, hard-fought game. We're not going to get blown out by Penn State, especially because by that point in the season, the momentum we'll have, in my personal opinion, will prevent a blowout from happening. Because when you have a certain amount of momentum, you usually don't allow something like that to happen, especially in football. But again, anything can also happen. But I am definitely having us dropping 2 games. I am going to say I think it will either be Michigan or Iowa that will drop, other than
I hope it's not Iowa.
I also hope it's not Iowa, especially because that momentum, even if it drops us out of any conversation, that momentum going into whatever game we would be in postseason would be shot a little bit. You don't want, because that'd be our last 2 games. Is it Penn State and then Iowa, or is there a game in between?
Back-to-back weeks, Penn State.
You do not want to lose like that. So I'm also hoping it's Michigan, or maybe it's a surprise game like a Minnesota or Maryland. Maybe it's a surprise loss, but I just don't see it being a lot of these teams. Like, I don't see it being we're good for the first 3 weeks. If we're not 3-0 by the end of the first 3 weeks,
there's a problem.
There's a huge problem. And we've seen that problem before. There's been seasons where we've had games that we should have won that we lost, and then we're 1-2 or 2-1 or whatever it is, and it's just not a good look going into conference play. So that is not happening this season. We're going to have a really nice beginning of the season, and I think we'll have a really nice ending. I also hope the second game we lose is not Iowa. Honestly, I'm going to say it right now. I would rather lose to Minnesota or lose to Maryland than lose to Iowa because of that rivalry, because that rivalry is there. And we've lost too many damn times to Iowa in the last few years. Or honestly, just since we started the rivalry, we've just lost too many times for my liking, at least. So I think we lose 2 games. I think we have a far better season because we won what? Including the bowl game, we were 7 wins last season.
7-6.
So that is a solid season from where we had been. But I think we take it to the next level and we finish with a 10-win season.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be the first time, if they could finish with a 10-win regular season, it'll be the first time since 2012. And that was the year Nebraska made the Big Ten championship, and we will not mention that Big Ten championship game. But it'd be the first time in 13 years that Nebraska's had a 10-win season. If Nebraska could find a way to get to 9, it'll be the first time since 2016. Oh my God, Sports Maniac, you are crazy. We're back to college football season, folks. 200-0.
What's the highest college football scored game ever? What is that? I want to know. Now that we're seeing definitely not 200, but you piqued my interest, Sports Maniac. I gotta pull. Did you see these comments that came through earlier, or did you not?
I was in the schedule, but
You were in the zone.
Yeah, Pats fans saying Nebraska losing every game. Huskers go 0-12. LMAO. Yeah, Nebraska's never lost every game in a season.
God, it's felt like it.
It's felt like it sometimes, but Nebraska's never lost 12 games. If Nebraska loses 200-0 to Houston Christian, you might as well just fold the entire program and just give athletic complex to like the volleyball team or something.
Literally.
That's not happened. But I need to see highest score in
I'm
a
curious.
college football game. Yeah, okay, so scoring was way different back in the day, but this was back in 1916. Georgia Tech won 222 to nothing over the Cumberland College Bulldogs.
So someone has won by 200 points. I didn't think that was possible. But again, like you said, scoring was different, and obviously it wasn't. Man, I'd like to be at that game, though. Oh, man. 200, that's crazy. That's crazy. But Sports Maniac, I don't think that's happening in 2025, probably. I think there's enough in place for that, something like that not to happen for any team, honestly.
If something like that happened, you might as well just fold the season and just forfeit the rest of your games, because if you lose 200-0 to Houston Christian, what's Nebraska going to lose? How much is Nebraska going to lose by against Michigan, the next week? Or Penn State?
Double it or triple it, honestly.
Yeah, triple the score, yeah.
That's the season. My question for you, though, which I might have actually just forgotten it, actually, as I just came up with it. Oh, yeah. Okay. So how many games do you think we need to win to get into the playoffs? How many do you think we need to be an 11, 12-win team, or do you think we could get away with 10?
I think Nebraska, depending on the wins and how they come and how their losses are, I think Nebraska can get in with 9. I think they can be one of the few with 9. They're going to at least be in the conversation.
Do you think there'll be multiple? Do you think there'll be 1 to 3 teams that have 9 wins? Do you think there'll be a couple of lower win teams, or do you think there'd be just one?
I think there might be I think there might be just one 9-win team, depending on.
That's fair.
Depending on how the resume looks, like say Nebraska is that 9-win team, just hypothetically speaking, and they have wins against Penn State and Michigan, but say they lose to Maryland, and let's just throw Iowa in there too. Like if Nebraska, has those 2 big wins against what are probably going to be pretty decent football programs in Michigan and Penn State, you're talking about a road win in Happy Valley, which is very tough to come by. The last time Nebraska beat Penn State on the road was, I think, 2014, and that was Bo Pelini's last year. So
Rip legend.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll never forget seeing him run through downtown the day after he was fired or before he was fired. I remember driving with my family, and he's just running in his sweatsuit thing downtown, and then he was fired, bro. I'll never forget. I loved him. I don't know. I loved him. I made my first YouTube video ever was like a 2-hour video hating on Scott Frost and saying how they should have never fired him. So I'll never get over that. But
right.
Anyways, story for another day.
Yeah. So, to answer your question, I think Nebraska can get in with 9.
9?
I think for them to for sure get themselves in, I think they're going to need at least 10.
Yeah, agreed.
They would need to finish the season 10-2, and if there's a season to do it, I think this is the year to do it. Because like I said, they miss out on Oregon, they miss out on Ohio State. By far, your 2 toughest games this year are Michigan and Penn State. One's at home, one's on the road. If you can find a way at least split those 2, I've got an interesting hypothetical question for you. What win would you rather have? Michigan at home or Penn State on the road?
I think Penn State on the road. I'm going to be honest. But it'd be so tough to lose, because here's the problem with it's not even which team do I want to win more. It's what part of the season is it more important to get that win. It's probably that part, the end of the season with Penn State. But then again, you lose early and that momentum can get sucked up so I don't know. It's a tough, but I'm going to go with Penn State. But it's hard for me to pick.
But say hypothetically, Nebraska, Michigan, super close. Michigan gets the ball late in the game and they score on a late winning field goal. Say it's like a 31-28 type game. But then Nebraska goes to Happy Valley. They put it all together on the field, and they win that game by 14 points. Does that make you feel any better about the situation?
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. 100%. So yes, I do think yeah, definitely. I think that there'd be a lot of, because I don't think, have we ever won in Happy Valley? We probably
2014. 2014 was the last one.
How many times have we played in Happy Valley since then?
This will be the second time or third time. Third time
ever?
Yes.
So, okay. Okay, so we're 1-1 there.
Yes.
Okay, boom, we got it. So yeah, you know what? I take back what I said earlier. We're going to be an 11-win team. 11-win team.
We're going to win 12 games this year. We're going to win the national championship.
You never know.
Hey.
I did it year 2 on College Football 25, so it kind of.
Hey, if we can do it on College Football 25 with the roster we started out with, I mean, we can do it now. I mean,
didn't you win your first season?
Oh yeah, I won every game by 50 points. I was like Coach Dana Holgerson, on the offense. I was coaching some awesome offense, and
it sounds like it.
I knew how to scheme up defenses too. They should have just hired me. Like, I know how to scheme up defenses. I know how to scheme up. I could be the best of both worlds. I could be the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator.
Kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Make it 1 position. They should have done that.
Just make it 1 position, man.
It's not too late. Do it. It's not too late.
Yeah. I can do it. And I tell you what, we'll talk about College Football 26 in here just a little bit, but I'm going to be winning it in the first season in College Football 26 too. I
bet, man. I got to step up my game. I was year 2.
Dude, within year 1, I already had a top 5 recruiting class. It was great.
Man, that took me a little while. Even after I won the national championship, my recruiting class was shit. But I think it's because I'm not great at recruiting. That's the one. Like, it was so in depth this season, which I loved that. But like, I haven't ever just like simmed it or skipped it, because I'm pretty sure you can just do that or have it be like. I've never done that, but I've never gone. So I tried to go pretty deep in it, and it took a minute to get used to it. But it's that part is awesome. That like depth of it. It's like, man. After I won
my first national championship with Nebraska in college football 25, which was the first year, I think I had the number 1 ranked recruiting class, actually.
Damn.
And I had 14 5-stars commit.
Man,
I was doing everything right on the recruiting trail, dude.
You need that to happen IRL.
Dude, yeah. Start a new dynasty. Got to start a new dynasty.
IRL, the Huskers have started. I do feel like we've seen a pretty big, obviously not the top recruit, but we've seen some major shifts in recruiting since Scott Frost, and with what we've been able to retain, and it's been a positive thing to see. So shout out to how come I can't think of his name right now?
What? Who?
The head coach of the team,
Matt Rule.
Matt Rule. Wow, I was blanking. I was thinking Scott Frost, and I know that nightmare's over, but I almost said that. But no, shout out to Matt Rule, because he literally is a team builder. Like, that is what he is known for, and he really does do that. So he does build teams up and change the culture. And we talked about this way earlier in the show, like towards the beginning, but his first 2 seasons with Nebraska were way better than some of especially his first season with Nebraska, were way better than some of those teams he had pretty huge jumps with by year 3. So I think there's no reason to not think that this year 3 jump is going to be even more exponential than those other ones he's had. So that's why there's been a lot of negativity. And we talked about it last season about a lot of people were like, is he going to be able to get it done? Is he going to be able to be that guy? And it's just, I definitely think he is that guy. And I think he's gotten other coaches around him, like Holgerson, that can be that guy with him. So it's not just him. And so I feel the most confident I felt about the Husker coaching staff in like 10 years, honestly.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Well, and you think about it too. Like he's made these hires, on both sides of the football. Like he's got Phil Snow as his co-head coach, basically as an advisor.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Rule is playing himself like a true CEO. He's letting his guys go coach. Matt Rule is still out there coaching. Don't get me wrong, but he's not going out there to a major extent like he was in his first couple of years. Like he's made himself the CEO of this organization. His coaches that he hired they're doing the bulk of the work, which is awesome. It takes a lot of off of Matt Rule's plate, which I think makes him feel better. So yeah, I think everything that we've been talking about, everything is going to pay dividends in the end. I think starting in this year.
Agreed.
Like I think if they finish 10-2, which I think they very well could finish 10-2 this year, that's just going to add to a much bigger jump next year.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're 10-2, you're probably going to be a top 10 program. You go into next year, depending on what you do in the bowl game, or if you're in the playoff, you're probably going to be preseason ranked in the top 10. You'll be preseason ranked top 10 with national championship aspirations next year. And I think, and I've been saying this, Dylan Raiola's junior year, I think, is when things really, really take off for this team.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
I think I'm going to die on this hill probably.
It's okay.
Nebraska will play in a national championship game before Dylan Raiola is out of here.
I think I can go on that hill with you too, possibly, because I think I can see it. I can see it.
I can visualize it because the recruiting has been there. The player development's been there. They've got facilities. They are getting 5-star athletes to come check out the place. Well, yeah, he's only a sophomore. In the recruiting trail, Nebraska is getting 5-star players to come check them out. And they're seeing the facilities. Nebraska's got top-notch facilities for player development, for recovery. Like, they've got top-notch facilities. What player would not want to play here? So you're getting some of those players. Like, I get it's the transfer portal, but Nebraska has picked up numerous former 5-star players through the transfer portal. Williams Nawanari, who was a 5-star plus defensive end for Missouri, transferred in to Nebraska this offseason. And he is going to be one of the main cogs in the defense this year. He is a monster human being. And you watch him in some of the spring practice highlights and stuff like that. He's gonna make some noise in the backfield when it comes to rushing the quarterback, making disruptive plays in general in the backfield. Like, Nebraska has added some key pieces that they can develop over the next couple of years. Nebraska is going to play themselves into possibly, I'm going to say they win a Big Ten championship. I'm going to say they win, or possibly at least play in a national championship game. I want them to win it. I think they can win it if they can.
How far do you think they go playoffs? Let's say they make the postseason. How far do you think they go their first go round ever in the postseason with the playoff format, but also just they haven't been in a postseason setting like that since it's been forever. It's been 20 plus years. So how do you think they react? Do they get bounced round one, or do they make a deep push, do you think? It also depends on matchups. That's another thing we have to take that into account. It
depends on the matchup, but if the matchups line up, I can see them making the semis.
Okay. That'd be.
Which, if Nebraska had played themselves into a situation like that where they're in the playoff, this team is going to be freaking juiced. They're going to be ready to go because they're playing for a chance to possibly go to a national championship. And that's a setting Nebraska hasn't been in really since 2001. That was the last national championship Nebraska played played in, and to get that taste back in the Nebraska, fans' mouth a little bit. It's like, oh, we're back in a big time setting again.
Mhm.
Like let's get this ball rolling. Like if they can get that taste, and say they only make the semis, say they get bounced in the Peach Bowl or whatever, which is one of the semifinal matchups. They can go into next year and it's just like, okay, we made the semifinals. Let's make a push to make the national championship this next year. Which I think year 3, we're going to see a pretty big jump. Like we've been alluding to. If we're both predicting 9-10 win seasons, it's a pretty sizable jump. Year 4, I think, is when the freaking big jump is going to happen. Because that's Dylan Raiola's 3rd year. You're going to have another really good recruiting class under your belt. And that's where I think all the pieces will really come together for this team. And that's where I say they're going to play in a Big Ten championship next year. They're possibly going to play themselves into an opportunity to play for a national championship next year. And people might say, oh, you're drinking the Kool-Aid. No, I'm just looking at things kind of logically. Like if Nebraska finishes the season the way we think that they can this year, just with the pieces they added, there's no reason why Nebraska can't finish with 11, 12 wins, at the end of year 4. They can make that jump. We've seen teams do it. And Nebraska is a big brand. One of the biggest brands in all of college football. Has one of the biggest, most passionate fan bases in all of college football. Like, you just think about it. Logically, it's not out of the norm. It's not out of the question for, especially if Nebraska has major momentum going into next year.
And they will after this. I mean, they will. That's the thing. They already – I kind of feel like we're – not we, because I feel like we do – or maybe I have at moments. But I feel like people are underestimating the jump they had even last year. I know we did have some rocky up and downs, and I think it's easy to discredit our jump because of the middle of the season. We had a great beginning of the season. We had a pretty good end of the season, and we had a pretty rough middle of the season. But Matt Rule, remembered his name this time, Rule didn't fold like some coaches or some programs would. Instead of just finishing the season out with the same guy, he went for Holgorsen. He made a change that worked. He made a change and that is what a leader does. A leader looks at what they have and what they need and makes the move that's best for everybody. And that's what he did. And so for me, the jump the team made with making it to a bowl game, with winning 7 games, I mean, it was just for me, that was the jump. And now we're going to see another one. And then next season, which again, we got to talk about this season, obviously, but I just think we'll build momentum up. I'm with you. I think if there's a reality, which there is a reality, where the Huskers make the postseason, make the playoffs this season, I think I am definitely giving them a first-round win. I think they win round 1. I do think from any point on is when they could get bounced. But I do think we will see them have a really good first game, first round, and then build up even more excitement. So I do think that this will be another stepping stone, another level up to that national championship, Big Ten championship, like you are alluding to. So I think we will see that next stepping stone, that next step achieved this season. And shout out to Matt Rule for doing that already. He's already been climbing that ladder each season. He's been a Husker coach.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to bring up some of the spring 2025 Husker football quotes from,
please do.
some players here. Rocco Spindler, who is a lineman that transferred from Notre Dame. As we all know, Notre Dame was a pretty good program last year.
They were.
One of his best quotes, "We've got to be an O-line driven program. That's where I'm coming from." And that quote, it really emphasizes the belief that a strong offensive line is crucial to team success, which is very true. Like, you got to be able to protect Dylan Raiola. You've got to be able to open up holes for your running back. you just got to give your team time, to make plays. And the offensive line throughout the year wasn't bad. The offensive line was not a bad, unit last year. They just need to take another step.
Agreed. That's the theme, taking another step for a lot of different facets of the team.
Right. And then Zaire Wright. I think one of the biggest parts that makes me confident is our closeness. It's a very close-knit group of guys now. They always go out and do things together. They work out together. They go take part in other things around Lincoln, or they go to another city for, a day or two. Like, the closeness, of this team is going to pay dividends in the long run. Wright also highlighted the importance of unity and trust within the defensive back unit, which there's always been some sort of like cohesiveness with that group in the back end of the defense. They just got to get to the point where they just feed off of each other and they just constantly make plays. That's what they need to do. I'm going to open up another link here in a moment. Deshaun Singleton is one that I really want to break down here, because Deshaun Singleton, he's a safety, and one of his best quotes here: "I'm here with my brothers at the end of the day. I'm just trying to go win a national championship. I want to leave here knowing we have the best secondary in the country." Singleton expresses a strong ambition for the team to achieve national success. Amari Sanders for overall team goals. And he's a highly touted defensive back. "We wanted to come here and change the program. We made a promise to what we're going to do when we got here." And he highlighted the team's ambition to elevate the program, much like Deshaun Singleton. But Deshaun Singleton is a very well-spoken dude. And he's got all the makings of an NFL player. I mean, his size and his speed, his just overall ability is really good. And according to Deshaun, they've been moving him around, various parts on the defense. And his quote is like, coaches have just been moving me around a bit, just putting me in the best positions to use my skill set and make plays at the end of the day, which is good. Shows that they're adjusting. And of course I hit a paywall in this link, but like, you kind of get what I'm saying. Like, all these players, we got rid of all of the Frost players with the losing mindset. They kind of built on a winning mindset toward the end of last year. Winning that Pinstripe Bowl against Boston College. You finish on a high note. Recruiting, they've done really well. They boast the 10th overall transfer class in the country with 15 commitments from the transfer class. They had a top 20 recruiting class overall. So, they put themselves in a position to make a jump.
Absolutely.
I don't care what all the naysayers have to say if we're going to lose to Houston Christian 200-0, or Nebraska's going to go 0-12. Yeah, 200-0. Look at that. Like, really? 0-12. Really, Nebraska's never finished a season 0-12. Like,
we've had some bad seasons, but not that bad.
Like, Scott Frost's 3-9 season felt like 0-12.
Yeah, it did.
But you just look at it, like, all these players are here for one goal, is they know Nebraska's football history. They walk into that trophy room in their facility every single day and they see the crystal balls sitting in the middle of the room, front and center. They see the Orange Bowl trophies. They want to elevate that program to getting back into playing in those key games.
Absolutely.
They want Lincoln to host a playoff game.
Oh my God, that would be a dream. That is a dream.
Like, if Nebraska hosted a playoff game, I will deplete my bank account just to go.
Same.
I don't care if I'm paying $2,000 on a damn ticket. I will go.
Same. Same here.
But they want, at the end of the day, they want Nebraska to win at the highest level again. I think that's what we all do. We haven't seen Nebraska win at that level in 24 years.
Mm-hmm. Seriously, it's too long.
So I have no doubt in my mind, the players have the right mindset. The right mindset, as we all know with our everyday life, the right mindset goes a long way in your own life success. The same can be said about sports. If you've got the right winning mindset, it'll take you infinite amounts, down the road. Like there's no number on it. It'll take you a long way. So I don't know. I'm super excited to get the season kicked off here in just over 2 months.
It's so soon, bro. Like we're gonna be doing these episodes, and before we know it, it's gonna be like, hey, this is the first game of the season starts next week. Like, it's not gonna take that long. It's gonna fly by, and it's going to also fly by once it's here. If we know how fast football season goes, especially college football season. Obviously, NFL goes a little bit longer, but even that feels like it flies by. So once it starts, it'll fly by. But I am so excited for it to start. And starting out a game like Cincinnati, obviously that opponent isn't like a marquee matchup, but going to Arrowhead Stadium is a marquee matchup.
Yep.
And it's literally just like, honestly, to me, an extension of Memorial Stadium. It's just going to be another Memorial Stadium, but not as nice. Memorial Stadium is better than Arrowhead, in my personal opinion. But Arrowhead, I've been there two times. One time. I went to a Chiefs-Raiders game a few years ago, and it was awful. The Raiders got beat. Like, I'm a Raiders fan, just so if anyone doesn't know that. And the Raiders got beat like 42-10 or something like that, and it was an awful experience. But the stadium is awesome. I love the environment and the atmosphere. So thinking and imagining Husker fans in it, I'm so excited, bro. I think it's going to be the perfect way to start the season, and I think we'll have a lot of hype just because of that start. I think we'll have good, and who knows, maybe we'll open up a can and win like 42-7, 42-10, and really get people's attention. I think it'll be a little bit closer because Cincinnati isn't a good team, but they're definitely a better team than Houston Christian or Akron, I would say. But we could start those first 3 games of the season winning by 30 plus points each game, and talk about momentum. And that's not even old school momentum from like 20. That's momentum from just like 10 years ago when we were winning the first 4 games with ease by 30 plus points. Like we're known for winning those season openers before conference play with a lot of ease. So during the Scott Frost era, or even the Mike Riley era, losing or having a tough time in those opening games always gave you a bad taste in your mouth before we even started the real games. Before you got into the real meat and potatoes of the season, you didn't even want to eat anymore. So for me, I just think that you're going to get a good taste in your mouth. You're going to feel confident, and you're going to be excited about Husker football. Not just us who are fans and who are excited now. Any people that are watching the games or skeptical fans, I think, are going to get pretty excited pretty quickly because they're going to see a different level of Husker football right off the bat. You're not going to have to wait until the middle or end of the season. You're going to see it from the start to the finish. And that's what I think we're both thinking, and we're both expecting, and I think that is hopefully how other Husker fans are feeling. I know it's a mix. I don't know about you, but I'm in a few different groups on Facebook and even on like TikTok. I'm on like a page that posts a lot of Husker stuff, so there's a lot of comments, and there's a lot of a divide. There's a lot of fans that are confident, that feel like we feel, and that think it's going to be a 9+ win season, and then there's some that are just not confident, but very skeptical, and that are skeptical of Matt Rule. And I just think he is going to prove a lot of people wrong and prove a lot of people right as well.
Right, absolutely. I just want to break down Nebraska's recruiting class.
Definitely.
That's they're enrolled this season, so they will be on the roster. The enrollees, there's 13 enrollees as of right now. There's some that are going to be showing up here this summer. Actually, a lot of them are going to show up this summer. Dawson Merritt is the enrollee that's highlighted right now. He's nationally ranked 103, the 103rd ranked recruit in the country for this class. Borderline 5-star recruit. Big linebacker out of Stillwell, Kansas. His dad famously coaches, or is one of the assistant coaches for the Kansas City Chiefs, which is pretty awesome.
That is.
But 6'3", 215 pounds. That's what this says right now. Although I've seen some workout videos and it looks like he's put on quite a bit of weight, quite a bit of size. He's going to be a really good player. Cortez Mills, wide receiver out of Homestead, Florida, who was originally committed to Oregon, but he flipped his commitment to Nebraska. Actually, no. That was Isaiah Mosey. Cortez Mills was originally committed to Oklahoma, I believe. Reversed his commitment to Nebraska. Big part of that was Dylan Raiola, getting him to flip. Very dynamic receiver. He doesn't have all the size, but he is fast. He's got 4.3 type speed. Extremely fleet of foot. He is shifty. He's the number 210 overall recruit in the country with a rating of 92. You got Christian Jones, the big-time linebacker out of West Side in Omaha. He was the number 1 player in the state last year. Nebraska was able to lock him up. He's going to be playing a very key role on Nebraska's defense for years to come. Isaiah Mosey was committed to Oregon, but his dad got hired on at Nebraska as a analyst or some sort of assistant, and Isaiah Mosey flipped his commitment from Oregon to Nebraska. Another very shifty wide receiver. There's a reason why Oregon liked him so much. 6'1", 185, doesn't have all the size, but he's extremely fast, extremely fleet of foot. TJ Lateef, the quarterback commit for this class, out of Orange County, California. He's got a big time arm. He's got legs. He can run when he needs to. I don't know where he's going to fit in the roster this year. I don't know if he's going to be the second string guy or if that's going to be Gramstad that's going to be right behind Raiola. But I could see TJ Lateef in big time blowouts. He could potentially get some time to play. Pierce Newberry, a 6'4" linebacker out of Millard North. Number 3 player in the state of Nebraska. Is probably going to play a key role too. Bryson Weber out of Missouri City, Texas. 6'2.5" corner. Should play a pretty decent role. One of the ones that I was extremely excited for was Houston Kayana Torres out of Honolulu, Hawaii. Interior lineman, 6'3", 265 pounds. Number 3 overall player in the state of Hawaii. Hawaii has produced some really good players over the years. I'm really excited for his upside. Jackson Carpenter out of Lincoln Southwest. 6'2", 185. He's fast wide receiver. Number 5 player in the state of Nebraska. Jamarian Parker, who we were excited to get out of St. Louis, Missouri. Mm-hmm. Nebraska finally dove their foot into the St. Louis market. Jamarian Parker's extremely fast running back. Like, he reminds me a little bit of Emmett Johnson, except Jamarian Parker, I think, has a little bit more of that breakaway speed. extremely shifty running back. He put up huge numbers for his school down in St. Louis. You got Caden Vermoss out of Millard North. You got Connor Booth out of Bishop Newman, which was crazy because Bishop Newman was in the same class that I was in when I played football. So we played Bishop Newman every now and then
That's cool. I
in
didn't
football.
know that. That's awesome.
And Connor Booth was one of the best running backs in the state of Nebraska in Class C. Like, he beat out some of the Class A guys.
Man.
Now, the players that signed their letters of intent that are set to come in this summer before summer workouts. You got Malcolm Simpson, big-time defensive lineman out of Hitchcock, Texas, 6'3", 255 pounds, 4-star recruit. Sean Hammerbeck, another 4-star recruit out of South Dakota, offensive tackle, big dude, 6'6", 260 pounds. Jeremiah Jones, who's a safety, he's a big safety too, 6'4", 200 pounds, out of Kentucky. Juju Marks, out of Olathe, Kansas, another big offensive tackle, 6'6", 290 pounds. You go to North Dakota now. Kate Peterzak, defensive lineman, big guy, 6'4", 250 pounds. A guy that I'm arguably more excited for here, Tyson Terry, who has the potential to be another like Ty Robinson-esque player on the defensive line. He's 6'2", 279 pounds. He is an undefeated wrestler in high school. Kind of crazy to think about going undefeated in wrestling. But then you go to Utah, Brian Tapu, offensive tackle. This is another really big dude, 6'7", 295 pound offensive tackle.
Jeez.
That's a big specimen right there. And then Nebraska's added 17 transfers to all this too. Kyle Cunahan, who's a kicker from Cal. You got Rocco Spindler, who was one of the bigger pickups in the transfer portal. He played on the interior O-line for Notre Dame. Really good player. He was a borderline 5-star player in the transfer portal. Elijah Pritchett, who is another big offensive tackle, which I think he's going to make an immediate impact on that offensive line for Nebraska this year. He's 6'6" and 327 pounds.
Jeez.
Big dude. He went to Alabama as a 5-star recruit. Jameer Khan. Don't know what school this is from. Southern Illinois. 6 foot, 180 pound corner. Pretty dynamic cornerback. For Southern Illinois. Yeah, one of my favorite additions in the transfer portal, and Marquise Watson-Trent, played linebacker at Georgia Southern, has consistently had over 100 tackles a season. Very dynamic linebacker. He can go from side to side, and he can attack north and south too. Hardly Gilmore IV, who is no longer with Nebraska, I don't think.
I don't think, yeah.
I
don't think he is either.
I think he went back to Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew Marshall, 6 foot, 186 pound corner. Dane Key, who is a transfer from Kentucky, who was their top wide receiver. He's going to make an immediate impact for Nebraska's offense this year. 6'3", 210 pounds. He's physical and he is fast. He will get open. Dasan McCullough, who was a high-end 4-star recruit at Oklahoma, who transferred to Nebraska. He's going to be in the linebacking conversation. He's 6'5", 235 pound. Big linebacker. Justin Rhett, a transfer from Georgia. He is a safety, 6'1", 200 pounds. Was a 4-star recruit going into Georgia, transferred in. Quarterback transfer, Marcus Davila from Purdue, 4-star recruit going into Purdue last year. Didn't really get a lot of time to play, but he adds to the quarterback depth here. Freshman Isaiah Hunter from Cal last year, 6'2", 210-pound wide receiver. He broke freshman records for Cal as far as being a wide receiver. So he's a good get. Gabe Moore, defensive line, 6'4", 290. Jalen George, 6'2", 265. And then Kevin Galick, 6 foot, 239 pounds. Jack McAllister, who is no longer with Nebraska. He was the punter pickup, but he ended up transferring back, I think. And then the big boy, Williams Nawinari, the defensive end from Missouri, who was a 5-star plus recruit. Nebraska has done a really good job at getting a lot of size up front on both the offensive and defensive side, which in order to win, you've got to have size. So I want to hear your thoughts on what I just broke down. What do you think about this recruiting class that has the potential to really make big strides this year?
Absolutely. I think, again, like I said about Rule earlier, is I think he's done a good job. And obviously it's not just him. He's got a whole staff that handles recruiting and that does what they need to do. But I think they've really leveled up the recruiting, and I think you can tell by who they've gotten and who has decided to transfer. I mean, I think you're looking at, like you said, size. You need size. That is crucial in all, honestly, in all, not all sports, but most sports when you go college and on, you need to have size, and definitely football is no exception. So the fact that they added size in positions where they needed to, because we've struggled specifically in those positions, whether it be lack of size or just lack of skill on the players that do have the size. So I think we're going to see this turn into one of the better recruiting classes we've seen in the last 10 plus years. Now, I can't say maybe the last 5 to 7 years. Maybe I can't say 10 years, but maybe I can honestly say 10 years, because obviously Bo Pelini had some pretty stacked recruiting classes. But since the Bo Pelini days, Mike Riley had an all right time recruiting, but it wasn't anything notable. So it really has been about 10 years since we've seen notable recruiting classes. And then you saw Scott Frost come in and now honestly, we did have some talent that he did recruit. We just weren't able to get. We're going to see a lot more talent come to fruition under the Rule guidance than we would have ever seen under Frost or a lot of other coaches, because again, Rule is good at building teams, and even if he isn't the person directly getting the guys, which the head coach does do a lot with recruiting, he has people. He is that CEO guy. He has people that help him get the players he needs. And so Nebraska, I like all the different pieces we picked up across the country. I love that. I love seeing all of that. I also really liked the Hawaii. I think that's going to be a really big piece. That's another example of adding a super important piece that we've been, I would say, not lacking, but just improving it and adding depth and also adding that star talent. So for me, it's one of the best, if not the best recruiting classes we've seen for about 10 years. And that's what we've seen under Rule. He's definitely kind of shifted that. And now it's all Rule's players. It's a whole different mindset now, I think, honestly. And we'll see that continue with more players recruited and brought in and built into the program.
Oh, absolutely. Matt Rule and his staff has done a remarkable job on the recruiting trail. They continue to do so. The 2026 recruiting class has potential to be really huge for them, especially if they can break out this year. And then 2027, they already got the quarterback commit for 2027 in Trey Taylor out of Illinois. And the three schools that he was picking, the two other schools that he was picking or choosing between were LSU and Illinois. And he chose Nebraska just based on the feel that he gets from the staff. And he's already been around Dylan Raiola. He's learned some of the stuff from him. Like, he's already peer recruiting for 2027. He's a part of one of the top 7-on-7 teams in the country with a bunch of 5-star wide receiver talent that he's trying to get to come check out Nebraska. because he wants them to come play with him. So the fact that we're actually starting to get these big name recruits on campus, which is something that Nebraska has not done in a long time, arguably probably since Bill Callahan was coach, because Callahan constantly had top 10 recruiting classes. Too bad his defense was trash, but I mean, since Bill Callahan, we haven't really gotten this much, traction as far as 5-star recruits even considering coming here. Like you're seeing Nebraska in the top 5 and all these 5-star players, final fives or whatever you want to call them. Like Nebraska's putting themselves on the map when it comes to recruiting, which is huge, and it'll pay dividends if you can continuously, impress these players. More and more players are going to want to come here.
True. It's just another sign that things are going in the right direction because, like you said, it's been so long since we've seen that. So it's just a sign that you're in the right direction and you're moving correctly. So it's good for Husker fans to see. And I don't want to say this again, but I probably will continue saying this. It is just another example of why Matt Rule was the guy they should have hired because he has had that impact. Of course, it's his staff too, but that all comes from him and his mindset and who he thinks the team needs. And he's really helped build up a winning environment, I think. And I think we'll see that actually turn into wins this next season.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's transition over to some of the Big Ten storylines now for this season. One of the biggest storylines going into this year is Illinois. Illinois was kind of a breakout team last year. They won 10 games last year. They were in the Citrus Bowl. And they're seeking a chance to have back-to-back 10-win seasons for the first time in program history. A big part or a big player in that is that they're going to have 18 returning starters coming back this season. So chances are they're going to have a really good team. Brett Bielema has done a really good job at building that Illinois Illini football program into a pretty tough program to play up against. They're returning Luke Altmaier, who was a really good quarterback in the Big Ten last year. Xavier Scott is an All-American at corner. Gabe Jacques, really good pass rusher for him as well. They're probably going to be a little bit of a force to be reckoned with, and I would not be shocked if they pull off an Indiana-type season this year. And thankfully, Nebraska misses out on them.
I'm very glad because I agree that they could definitely have that type of Indiana surprise season.
Yeah, they're poised to have a really good year. I'm not going to be shocked if they pull off another 10-win season this year.
Agreed.
Big question mark here as far as Iowa. They think they have their quarterback in Mark Gronowski, who played for South Dakota State. And he was
I'm not so sure.
He was a good quarterback in the FCS. The big question is he going to transition to major Division I college football, or is he going to succeed at Iowa? Which I don't know if that offense is going to be very successful. I'm going to be real.
I agree. They'll struggle. I think we'll see them struggle more than we've seen them struggle in recent history. They've not been the best team consistently, honestly. They've had good seasons, but they've also had bad seasons or just had moments where they've blew it in seasons and kind of ruined their momentum. But I do agree that we will see kind of a downgrade, especially offensively.
Yeah, and Iowa's offense was atrocious last year. Absolutely atrocious. I mean, you go back to the Nebraska-Iowa game. Iowa only had 5 first downs. They had They had 120 total yards of offense. Nebraska had chances to put Iowa away,
without
and they just didn't. But I'm just going to read this paragraph here about Mark Gronowski. This is off of 24/7 Sports. This is not the first time Iowa's been optimistic about his quarterback situation, but Mark Gronowski might finally be one to make the Iowa Hawkeye offense palatable. That's debatable. He flew under the radar to an extent as an FCS standout, but has all the tools he needs to succeed in a Tim Lester offense. Again, kind of doubtable. The Hawkeyes were at their best last year when they had a mobile quarterback under center. Okay, I'm not going to debate that. That's true.
Facts.
And Gronowski is just that. Gronowski is a better runner than he is a thrower. He is outstanding at making off-script plays and beating defenders with his legs, but not at the expense of his pocket passing. That makes the South Dakota State transfer a perfect fit for Iowa. That remains to be seen because Iowa's offensive line struggled. They're returning a lot of those players back. I think they're going to have a lot of the same struggles. I think the players sense that Kirk Ferentz is probably on his way out. I would not be shocked if Kirk Ferentz is fired at the end of the year or if he just chooses to retire. Iowa's offense was just downright bad last year. It just terrible. Like Nebraska's offense at times last year was really bad, but they were nowhere near as bad as Iowa was for a large part of the season. But we will see about Iowa. The next four.
I just think they'll downgrade though because they were already a not great team. I think they'll be. I don't think that is the team that will beat us in our schedule. I don't think they'll be a team that will be beating a lot of teams in there. So I think they'll be maybe not a 4 or 5 win team, but I think that is about what they'll be possibly. But maybe they'll be better than that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 6. Maybe they'll cap it off at 6.
Right. Absolutely. The next storyline is about Indiana. Indiana is no Cinderella no more. They are not a Cinderella after last year. This might be the most highly anticipated Indiana football season of all time. Only 3 times have the Hoosiers entered a campaign inside the AP top 25. But that count will grow to 4 when August arrives because they will be in the AP top 25 without a doubt. Kurt Signetti received so much acclaim in the breakout 2024 season that his program no longer holds Cinderella status. Instead, it is now an expectation that the Hoosiers will compete in the top half of the Big Ten. That is practically unheard of. The transfer addition of Fernando Mendoza, the retention of defensive stars Aiden Fisher, Mikhail Kamara, and D'Angelo Pons make it a reality. Indiana is a major question mark this year because they are losing Curtis Rourke, who was their quarterback last year. They have added some pieces. I do not think they are going to win 11 games like they did last year. Everything just fell on their plate just right for them to do that. What are your thoughts on Indiana? What do you think Indiana is going to do this next year?
I think they're going to be an 8-win team. I think they're going to win 7 or 8 games. Obviously, that is still better than some of the seasons they've had before, but I don't think they'll be ranked. I don't think they'll have the same type of hype that they had because, again, I don't know. I would say that it was a Cinderella season. I think that's going to be what people are going to end up calling it because I think we're going to see them come back to earth. Maybe not a Cinderella season because honestly, I can maybe see them still winning 9 to 10 games, but I really think they're going to be an 8-win team. 7 is maybe a little bit discrediting them a little bit too much. I'm going to give them 8. I'm going to say they're going to be an 8-win team, and they're going to move down in what people think they're going to be in the Big Ten. They're not going to be that top of the pack. They're going to be like a little bit towards the middle, I would say, or even a little bit below. I do not see them having the same momentum they had last season. So I don't know if I'm going to call it a Cinderella season, but they're not having another season like it. Is what I'm going to say.
I'm sorry if they're. Yeah, I'm sorry if there are any Indiana fans that listen to this show. I'm going to be pretty bullish. Okay. And I think they finished 6-6 to 7-5.
Oh, okay. Wow. I thought what I said
I
was bullish. Okay.
I I I think
I
last
like it,
year
though.
was an anomaly.
Yeah,
I really do think it was an anomaly because Kurt Signetti brought 20 of his players from James Madison that he won at a high level with at James Madison. And they already had that winning culture in place with those players.
that is true.
Now, all those players are gone,
Mm-hmm.
outside of maybe two of them. It's a whole new team.
True.
It's a whole new team. They're breaking in a new quarterback.
That is a good point.
They are going to get set back a little bit. I think they're going to get set back quite a bit.
To a 6-win season? Man, that's
I
really
think
set back.
I said I was going to be bullish.
I can see that, though. It's not like I'm over here like I can't, because I can also see it. As much as I'm thinking 8 is where they'll fall down to, I can also see them falling all the way down to 7 or 6. So I do see what you're saying.
Yeah. And I just don't want to go out on a limb and say, "Oh yeah, they're going to win 11 games this season." No, they have a bunch of question marks on that team.
Do you
And
think they have any chance of winning 8 to 9, or are you pretty solidly thinking their max would be a 7-win? Is that where you're putting
I
the
think
ceiling
I
at?
think this season's going to be their ceiling is going to be 7.
7?
I
can
really
see
do.
that. I can see that. For the team they were before, and also the changes and who they lost, and just I can see that as well. I'm my ceiling is 8. I think my ceiling is 8. So maybe my floor is 7, because I can see that. But 6, that, man, talk about falling all the way back down to earth if you win only 6 games.
I honestly, and I've been saying this to all sorts of my friends that are highly involved with the college football world. And we all kind of agree. We all think that Indiana is going to fall back to earth.
Do they fire their head coach, or do they hold on to him? Is that too?
They signed him to like a 10-year coaching deal. So if they were to fire him, Indiana probably wouldn't be able to afford to buy him out.
Yeah, no, literally 10-year.
It's like a 10-year deal to coach at Indiana.
Which I don't think they would fire him anyway if they had a 6-win season after having. I think they would probably give him a chance no matter what, but they definitely are if they have him, if it's that long of a contract, or because you can't afford to buy him out of that.
No. And I'm not going to deny Kurt Signetti did a really good job with the team last year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the guy, though.
No.
He is extremely arrogant. And I get how some players might feed off of that arrogance, but it's not it's not always a good thing. And that arrogance is going to find a way to bite him one way or another. You got to have some sort of some amount of, humbleness in your everyday way of thinking. You've got to be humble.
True.
And he was not humble. No. Every time someone asked him about like who he is, and every single time his answer would be Google me. Google me.
The only person that can say something like that is like a Tom Brady. Someone like that could say something like that, or someone. Yeah, I don't think you've really. Has he coached for, like? What's his resume? That's my question. What is his resume even? Because if you're saying Google me, you have to have a resume that's worth Googling. So like a Tom Brady, or an athlete that has championships, or a coach that has. But is he a Google me guy? I don't even think he's a Google me guy. But I could be wrong. I don't even.
Let's see. Kurt Signetti. His coaching career, 1983-84, he coached for Pittsburgh, Georgia. 1985, Davidson. 86-88, Rice. He was the quarterback coach in 89-92 for Temple. 93-99, he was the Pittsburgh quarterbacks, that's tight end coach. 2000 to 2006, it was the NC State quarterback tight end and RC, whatever that means. 2007 to 2010, he was the Alabama wide receiver coach. He from 2011 to 2016, he was at Indiana University of Pennsylvania as their head coach. He was the head coach of Elon in 2017 to 18. And then from 2019 to 2023, he coached at James Madison. Now he coaches at Indiana. His head coaching record is 130 and 37.
So that's a really good coaching record, but for me, like, that's still not a Google Me resume. So that is very, and that's just a pretty arrogant. No matter if you do have one, that's a really arrogant thing to say. So
well,
yeah, I get what you're saying for sure.
And in tournaments, like in the playoffs, he's 0-1 in the CFP. He is 6-5 in NCAA D1 playoffs, which would be like the FCS.
Mm-hmm.
He's 4-3 in the Division II playoffs. His accomplishments, he won 2 South or Sun Belt East Division championships in 2022 and 2023 with James Madison. He won 1 PSAC championship in 2012. He won 2 PSAC West Division championships in 2012 and 15. He won 3 CAA championships between 2019 and 2021. He won 1 CAA South Division 2022 or in 2020. So his resume, like, while he has won, like, at a relatively high level, he has a really good winning percentage. He really hasn't won anything.
Yeah, no, he really hasn't.
Like you think about it, like, he's a 500 coach in the playoffs overall.
Yeah, no, he really hasn't.
Like,
I mean, obviously he's still, I don't know. I think you gotta find a medium ground with him, and you have to accept him for what he is and not think. I don't think he's that guy that's going to turn Indiana into a playoff
powerhouse,
national champion. Yeah, powerhouse, Big Ten. No, he's not that guy. But I don't think they'll obviously fire him because they really can't. But I do think that they'll have more success with him than they will this next season. I do think he has potential to still have success at Indiana, but it's just not this season for me. Mm-hmm. That's where I'm at.
Absolutely. Moving on, another big storyline. This is with Wisconsin. Luke Fickell is trying to re-seek momentum. Paragraph here. I don't like where we are right now. They need to bounce back and put this program where it belongs. That was the message from legendary Wisconsin coach Barry Alvarez ahead of the spring camp at Wisconsin, where third-year man Luke Fickell has a lot to prove. The Badgers finished 5-7 last season and missed bowl eligibility for the first time since 2001. This is not what Wisconsin brought Fickell in to do, and it will be tough to right the ship against a brutal schedule that features Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State, and Oregon, among numerous other projected bowl teams. What do you think Wisconsin's going to do this year? And I'll pull up their schedule real quick.
I'm going to give a hot take. I think they're going to have – now, well, I can't say it's a super hot take because I'm not going to sit here and say Wisconsin is winning 11 football games or Wisconsin is going to be the best team in the Big Ten. Or they're going to – no. But I do think we're going to see them have more success than what they have had. They were 5-7 last season. They did not have the greatest season. They do not have an easy schedule, but I think they're going to surprise people and win 8. I know that's crazy, especially because their schedule is not easy, but I think they're going to win. Maybe 7 is more realistic. Maybe I should say 7, but I think they're going to surprise people and win a couple of those harder matchups and have more success than what people think. And I think they're going to be a 7/8 win team that goes to a bowl game. But they could also be a 5-win team again, or they could be even worse. But I am going to give them 7 or 8 wins, and I think they're going to find more success. But I don't think they're going to go to the college football playoffs or do anything crazy or win more than 7 or 8. And I'm gonna say 7. I'm giving them 7 wins.
Their
Give me 7.
schedule is so brutal. They open up with 2 relatively easy games in Miami, Ohio, and Middle Tennessee. Then they have to go to Tuscaloosa, play Alabama. They got Maryland going to Madison. They got to go to Ann Arbor to play Michigan.
But is that before or after we play Michigan?
That is after we play Michigan.
Because imagine we beat Michigan, they're a little beat up, they're a little worn down, and imagine Wisconsin coming in for the kill and getting that win. We've seen that happen in the past, but that is not an easy. You said it's in Ann Arbor?
It's in Ann Arbor.
That might not matter then, honestly. We've seen that not matter,
So right away. So we've got Miami, Ohio, Middle Tennessee. They should start 2-0.
Mm-hmm.
They go to Tuscaloosa. That's a loss. I'm
loss.
writing it at 2-1. You got Maryland going to Wisconsin. Maryland, like I said in our breakdown of Nebraska's schedule, is a question mark. I think Wisconsin can get the job done against Maryland. So that's 3-1. They then play Michigan. They lose to Michigan. That's 3-2. Iowa goes to Wisconsin. I think Iowa bites Wisconsin because that game's always close. It's a rivalry. I think Iowa bites Wisconsin. That's 3-3. You then have Ohio State going to Madison. Ohio State's the reigning national champ, and they're probably going to try and repeat this year. Ohio State beats Wisconsin. That's 3-4. You then got Wisconsin going to Eugene, Oregon. Oregon's going to be a really good team again this year. That's another loss. You have 5 losses in 8 games now. You're 3-5. Washington goes to Wisconsin. Washington's going to be better than they were last year. Washington's going to be quite a bit better than they were last year. But I'm going to be nice. Wisconsin gets a close win against Washington. So that's 4-5. Wisconsin then plays at Indiana. I think Indiana beats Wisconsin. So you're 4-6. Illinois plays Wisconsin. Illinois is going to be a damn good football team again this year. 4-7. And then Wisconsin, Minnesota. There's a really good likelihood here. Wisconsin misses out on a bowl game for the 2nd year in a row. Like, this schedule is brutal. Because not only do you have playoff contending teams in the schedule, but you've got a lot of tough bowl competing teams on the schedule too. Because you finish the season against Minnesota at Minneapolis. There's a likelihood here where Wisconsin finishes 4-8 to 5-7.
It's possible. It's very possible. They do have they have one of the tougher schedules for sure in the Big Ten.
And none of their additions are really screaming to me saying, oh, this team is going to be improved. I think this team's going to be a lot of the same as we saw last year.
That's fair.
This is going to be the same team that we saw lose by 19 to Nebraska and lose by 17 to Minnesota.
Could be.
I'm not high on Wisconsin at all. I think Luke Fickell gets fired at the end of this year.
Man, it's possible. If he wins 4 games, he's out for sure. If he wins 5, if they miss a bowl game again, he's probably out. Realistically, if they miss a bowl game, he's more than likely out. Here's my difference. The difference in my take on their schedule is obviously they win the first 2. I don't have them beating Alabama. There's no way I'm going to call that. I have them beating Maryland. The difference where I do have them beating was Michigan and Iowa. I think that is the difference. I think they'll be a little bit hot in that early part of the season. Then you'll see them struggle against Ohio State, against Oregon. But I really do think they've got potential to get 7. But I also see what you're saying, and I think on the flip side, they definitely could also finish a 4 or 5 win team. So it's just going to deter, like, I feel like the most crucial games for them to win will be that Iowa game, and that Michigan game. I think if they can win those games, they'll have enough momentum. But it's a tough schedule. It's no secret that is one of the tougher schedules, and they could easily be a 4-win team if they're not on top of it.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I just don't see it. Like, I don't think Luke Fickell is a really good fit at Wisconsin. That's the big thing.
Either.
He was not a good fit at Ohio State when he was the head coach there either.
True, that is a good point.
He was a way better fit at Cincinnati where he had things rolling. And I think Cincinnati would have been a really good program had Luke Fickell stayed. Had Luke Fickell stayed, they probably would have built off of their undefeated season that they had in the American Conference. And they probably would have been able to bring a little bit of that to the Big 12. Like, just think on how much better Cincinnati would be had Luke Fickell just stayed where he was having all of his success.
Without a doubt.
And the same can be said about Scott Frost. Had he not come to Nebraska, and had he stayed at UCF where he said that he wanted to stay to begin with, which why the hell would you want to, come to Nebraska if you wanted to stay at UCF? Like, UCF would have been a pretty big powerhouse going into the Big 12 too. So I just don't see a world. Like, I can kind of see where you're coming from, but I don't see a world where Luke Fickell's getting out of this where he's not fired.
It's very possible. I can definitely see them being 4 wins. I have a feeling they'll have some momentum against those teams like Iowa, those teams like Michigan, and maybe be able to pull it off, especially, like I said, because if Michigan is playing them after us, they might be a little beat up, and there might be a little bit of that because that can happen. It doesn't always happen. We've seen bounce back games too after that.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on here. So this one says New Year, same goal for Big Ten's middle class teams. So bowl eligibility with the potential to crack the upper echelon is the perennial goal for any Big Ten team not named Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, or Penn State, who account for the last 9 conference championships. Michigan State and UCLA came up a win shy of the postseason last year under new leadership. So for Jonathan Smith and Deshaun Foster, progress looks like a 500 or better 2025 campaign. Minnesota, Rutgers, and Washington all passed the test last year and now seek to build on their bowl-eligible seasons. Kind of an interesting thing. So UCLA, they showed flashes toward the end of last year that they could be pretty good. They had athletes, on the field. And I mean, they came up 1 win shy. Michigan State was the same way. Will Michigan State and UCLA finally break through and get to a bowl game? What are your thoughts?
I think so. I think we'll see a theme kind of throughout the Big Ten of some teams make some jumps this season and some teams have a little more success. I'm going with yes, even though there has been recent history that would go against that. I do think that there's going to be across the board, I think we're going to see some of those more middle ground teams or even below middle ground kind of regain their stature and kind of be, because we've seen a lot of classic Big Ten teams. I don't want to say fall in the 2020s, but they've definitely kind of lost some of their
mojo.
Their mojo. They've lost a little bit of it. I think we'll see. I think that'll be, and of course that they're not the worst example of it. There's worse teams, but I think there'll be a team that will get a little mojo back, and we'll see some mojo back for a couple of Big Ten teams, new or old. I think we'll see a little bit more than what we saw within the last season or beyond that, honestly. So I'm excited to see it as a football fan. Obviously, as a Husker fan, I'm going our boys all season long, no matter what. But as a football fan, I would love to see some of those teams kind of have a nice, strong season to see some really good Big Ten football.
Right, absolutely. I want to break down UCLA's football schedule really quick. Let's see here. So they kick off the season against Utah, which that's an old Pac-12 rivalry. And that's kicking off. It's August 30th at 10 p.m. This is going to be like a Pac-12 after dark.
Man, that is. Let's go. I'm glad they're giving that to us because that's a good throwback. You want to see that.
Yeah, it'll be a Big 10/Big 12 after dark now because it's
That's
not the Pac-12 anymore. But really cool. No, UCLA then travels to Las Vegas and plays University of Nevada, Las Vegas, which UNLV had a good season last year. They're really tough. UCLA should be able to take care of business. I'm gonna say Utah beats UCLA in game 1 in a close game. I think UCLA comes back and wins against UNLV in game 2. They play New Mexico, who is another pretty tough team, but I think UCLA can take care of business against New Mexico. So you're 2-1. UCLA plays Northwestern at Northwestern. So that's a heck of a trip. I think UCLA has enough energy to take care of Northwestern. I don't think Northwestern's going to be anything that anybody really needs to worry about this year. They were abysmal last year. Penn State goes to UCLA. These are the games that are interesting because if you want to pick off a top echelon team, you want them to travel a long distance. And Penn State's going to do just that, traveling out to LA. I don't think UCLA gets that done. I think that's another loss. So they're sitting at 3-2. UCLA goes to Michigan State. I think UCLA can pull that one off on the road. So you're 4-2. Maryland goes to UCLA 5-2. But here comes, a little bit of the meat of the schedule now. So you're 5-2. You got you have to go to Indiana. Indiana's going to be tough. I know I said they're going to be 6-6, 7-5, but I don't think that's going to make them any less of a football team to play up against. I think they're still going to be pretty gritty. I don't think they're going to be as flashy as they were last year. I think they're going to be decent on the defensive side of the ball. I think they're going to be a little bit serviceable on the offensive side of the ball. I think Indiana could pull that one off against UCLA. Nebraska then goes to UCLA, which I think it's a way more manageable trip for Nebraska to make a trip out there than it is for like Ohio State or Penn State or Maryland or what have you. Because we're literally smack dab in the middle of the country. I think Nebraska takes care of UCLA. So you're sitting at 5-4. UCLA then has to take the trip out to the Horseshoe, which is very tough. Ohio State's probably going to be playing for another national championship this year. Ohio State takes care of UCLA. So you're 5-5. Washington goes to UCLA, which will probably be another like Pac-12 after dark type game, which would be kind of cool to watch. 2 in the same season would be cool. UCLA, USC at the end of the year is going to be the same way. Washington, UCLA. I think UCLA actually gets the win against Washington. That'll get them to their 6th win. Be 6-5, you get to a bowl game. UCLA then goes to USC, and I think that's where USC beats UCLA. I think UCLA makes a modest jump to 6-6 this year. I think they get to a bowl game.
I agree.
I think they finish as a 500 team. I honestly do think they finish 500. Now, breaking down Michigan State. Unless you have any thoughts on their schedule, UCLA schedule.
Honestly, that I have a similar breakdown. I might have one game different, but I have it being 6-6 for sure too. I think that's going to be right where they'll be at.
Yeah, for sure. We're on the same page when it comes to a lot of this stuff. It's kind of funny. So Michigan State this year, they open up the season against Western Michigan. Should be a win. They play Boston College. Boston College is kind of starting to sneak up a little bit. They're a pretty tough football program now. I'm going to say with the home field, though, at night, I think Michigan State will get that job done. That's 2-0. You got Youngstown State coming to town in East Lansing. Michigan State takes care of that one.
For sure.
And then the meat of their schedule really hits kind of in the middle of the year, which is kind of rough. So you're 3-0. You play at USC after you play Youngstown State. USC beats Michigan State. Michigan State then has to roll into a hostile environment in Nebraska. Nebraska takes care of Michigan State. UCLA rolls into Michigan State at 11 a.m. I think Michigan State gets back on track, beats UCLA. So you're talking, 4-2. They're 4-2 now at this point with losses to USC and Nebraska. Then they have to go to Indiana. I think Michigan State can beat Indiana. Puts them at 5-2. Michigan rolls into East Lansing. That's always a tough rivalry game. Michigan State. Very tough, very gritty. I think Michigan still takes care of the job. So you're sitting at 5-3. Michigan State then rolls to Minneapolis to play Minnesota. I think Minnesota will beat Michigan State. That's 5-4. Penn State rolls into Michigan State. Penn State's going to be in the upper echelon again. We've been saying this all episode long. Penn State takes care of Michigan State on the road. So that's 5-5. So now in the last two games against Iowa and Maryland, they got to at least find one. Michigan State has to play at Kinnick Stadium the following week after Penn State. They're probably going to be a little beat up after getting beat around by Penn State a little bit. But I think Michigan State gets the job done against Iowa. And I do think Michigan State beats Maryland. I think Michigan State finishes 7-5 this year. I think they make a 2-win jump. What are your thoughts on that?
I think so. For me, I'm going either a 1 or a 2-win jump. I think it's going to be 2, but I'm with you that they're going to have pretty early season success. And then I think they'll have a stretch of games where they're losing quite a few, whether that's in a row or just off and on. They're losing quite a few of those bigger matchups. But I'm giving them 6 or 7 wins. I really am. I think they'll have an improvement. They'll be in a bowl game. I think, again, we'll see a lot of these teams that you've seen be successful that we haven't seen that successful in a while have a little bit more. I think Michigan State will be on the lower end of that. Same with UCLA will be on the lower end of that. But I still think we'll see a boost and we'll see a push. And I do think we'll see. I'm with you. I do really think they could get to 7. At the same time, I can see them getting in a slump after losing some of those bigger matchups and maybe only getting to 6. But either way, they're winning more than they won last year. And I also think that they will find more success even in the games that they lose. I think we'll see a better Michigan State team overall.
100% agree. I do think Michigan State's going to be a better team this year than they were last year. At times they were pretty good last year.
True. They did have moments.
They showed flashes.
Definitely.
And I do think they'll take another step or two forward this year to get back to the postseason, get back to playing in a bowl game or what have you. So, yeah. Next up, we talked all about this at the beginning of the episode, obviously it was mostly Nebraska centric. Nebraska OC paves way for Dylan Raiola breakout. Dylan Raiola was an immediately more effective thrower when Dana Holgorsen took over as offensive coordinator last November. His hire is easily one of the best of the coaching carousel cycle. This offseason gives the two more time to work together and for Raiola to develop before his sophomore year. The biggest leaps often come in year two, so the Husker offense could be in for a breakout come the fall. Any step forward for the five-star quarterback who paced the Big Ten with 11 interceptions as a true freshman would likely push Nebraska further up the conference ladder. We talked all about that at the beginning of the year, how when Dana Holgorsen came in, Dylan Raiola's completion percentage skyrocketed. It was well over 70% when Holgorsen took over. So, I mean, that goes pretty easy with what we were saying. As far as, Holgorsen is going to have a major impact on this offense. He is an offensive mastermind. We saw it at times when he was at Houston. Houston had some really good teams when Holgorsen was there. West Virginia had some really good teams and offenses when he was there. He can scheme up an offense. He knows how to break down a defense just from watching film. It's like, oh, this is what they're going to do, so we're going to do it this way. This Husker offense has potential to be pretty damn explosive this season. And I know you share that same sentiment with how we were talking earlier. Do you have anything else to add as far as what I just read out?
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely, like you said, they'll be a dangerous team. I think we'll just see a different level of consistency. And we talked about that earlier on the defensive side too. But when you got Holgorsen, you saw a whole different level of consistency. And what I will say is, an athlete you can have the best athlete ever, but if you have the wrong coach that's helping scheme things up, then there is a level of that player being held back, and you wonder why they're not producing more because of their talent and their skill. And then you get the right coach and the right leader in place, and then you see that open up. So for me, I just think we'll see more of that because it's not going to be a couple of games. It's going to be a whole season of change and a whole season of Raiola, I think, feeling like he has more options. And I think despite all the new weapons he had, I think even if he had a full season with Holgorsen last year, we would see them be a 7 or 8 win team during the regular season. Honestly, truly, I believe that because I just think that a lot of our inconsistencies, especially on that side of the ball, came from what was being drawn up, and it was easy to see that. So for me, we're going to see a much improved Husker offense that puts up 30-plus points a game, possibly, very easily. If they do what we know they can do, there'll be a 30-plus point. I mean, maybe in some games they're not putting that up, but I would say they'll be pretty consistently 30-plus points if they have the efficiency we think they will.
Yeah, absolutely. And, if Nebraska could find a way to score, say, 35, mid-30s a game or upper 30s, maybe even low 40s a game, that's going to put them in a really good spot to win all these games.
It really is. Especially if the defense is showing up too.
If the defense has more consistency and say they finish higher ranked, than last year, because they were a top 15 team, or top 15 defense, total defense last year. If they can find a way to creep up into the top 10, say they're a top 10 overall defense, but you have an offense that's scoring 38 to 40 points a game, like that's a recipe for success, because chances are your defense is only giving up like 12 or 13 points a game.
True.
Like, obviously your defense is going to give up more points, every now and then. But like in the grand scheme of things, like throughout the season, like if your offense is putting up those numbers and your defense is putting up the numbers that they are, say they're taking the ball away, giving Dylan Raiola more chances to go make plays. This Nebraska team, like at the very moment on paper, is going to be really dangerous if all that comes about. And we've been saying this for the last several years. Like on paper, they've had the athletes to compete up with the higher echelon of teams in the Big Ten. They just never had the coaching. Now the coaching is starting to come together. Matt Rule is a solid head coach. Yeah, he struggled in the NFL, but what college coaches have gone to the NFL and have not struggled?
Very true.
A totally different ballgame. You think about Nick Saban. Nick Saban went to the NFL for a little bit to be a head coach. He struggled immensely before coming back to college. That was after he was the head coach at LSU. Like, college coaches making the transition to the NFL, it's a very, very big change because you're going from players that think or players that are looking to learn how to play the game properly to you're coaching a team with 16-year vets that think they rule the roost and they don't pay no mind to what the coach says.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge difference. And a lot of the time, those players are making more money than the head coaches.
Facts. That's true.
So no wonder they think they rule the roost. The coach really can't get a word in the NFL. Meanwhile, they can get a word in college. And they can teach. They can develop. So people that like comparing Matt Rule to his NFL years, squash all that. Just squash all of that. Look at what he did in college. He's a solid college football coach. He rebuilt Temple. Baylor was arguably in a worse situation than what Temple was in when he got there. Baylor had all those allegations of rape and stuff like that going on. Like that program almost folded when all that was coming out with Art Briles and some of the coaches or players on the team. And Matt Rule quite literally had to rebuild. He had to regain trust of all the parents of the players on the team. He had to regain trust with recruits. He's a damn good coach. And you can't tell me otherwise. And
yeah, no, exactly.
There's a reason why Baylor went from 1-11 in year 1 to year 3. They were playing in the Big 12 championship game as an 11-win team. They finished that season 11-1. And then they lost a really close game, I think, against Michigan State in the bowl game in the Cotton Bowl. He's a good coach.
100%.
And, I mean, we're starting to see all that come together now. I mean, he's hiring the right people to be in charge.
Agreed. Without a doubt.
So yeah, that's enough Nebraska football talk right now. Let's move on to the next one. USC. Lincoln Riley is under pressure. USC had a way worse season last year than I think anybody thought they would, especially with the talent that they had. And they still have a lot of talent, but they showed that the transition to the Big Ten is not as flawless as it looks, even though Oregon made it look flawless, damn near anyway.
For real.
But USC, comparing the teams like Oregon and USC together, like arguably they had the most talent on their rosters comparative to Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan. Yet they were only a 7-win team last year. They won 7 games. I do think USC takes a step up. I do think they're a 9-win ball club this year. But the question is 9 wins going to be enough to keep Lincoln Riley's job?
I mean, he's been on the hot seat, I would say, and rightfully so. I think they're going to have a bad season. Honestly, I don't think they're going to have a very successful season. I think he's done. I think this is his last season at UCS or USC. Excuse me, USC. I think this is his last year. Honestly, I could be wrong, but I think we're seeing the end of his time at USC. But again, maybe they come out and have a big season and a good season, but I just don't see that.
Right. Yeah. Their schedule consists of Missouri State, Georgia Southern, Purdue to start things off. They play Michigan State, Illinois, Michigan, Notre Dame. They play at Nebraska, against Northwestern, against Iowa, against Oregon, and then against UCLA.
They're going to lose a lot of games back to back.
Yeah. Their schedule is kind of, in a way, daunting. There's certain parts because, I mean, you got to go to Champaign, Illinois and play the Illini. You have to go to Notre Dame. You have to go to Nebraska. You have to go to Oregon. You have to play Michigan. Like, it's not the hardest schedule, but it's not easy. And in order for Lincoln Riley to keep his job, I think they have to win 10 games, but I don't see 10 games where they're going to win.
Nope, me neither. I think they're winning 5 or 6, honestly. That might be a little bit low, but yeah, I'm going 5 or 6.
You're going bullish. Okay.
I'm going low. Because I have them winning their first 2, obviously, because they're playing. Who are they playing? Let me go to it. They're playing
Missouri State,
Georgia Southern, and Purdue. They're 3-0 in their first 3. But I got them beat. I can maybe see Michigan State beating them. I can see Illinois beating them. I can see Michigan beating them. I can see Notre Dame. I can see those next. So that's a lot of losses in a row. Are they going to actually lose that many games in a row? Realistically, they'll probably pick up 1 or 2 of those games as wins.
If they lose, say, hypothetically speaking, if they lose Michigan State, if they lose Illinois, Michigan, Notre Dame, and then Nebraska, you're talking 5 straight losses.
I think there's a reality where that happens. Is it 100%? Am I 100% betting on it? No, but I think the best that they will go in that is 2-3. But I think that they will go 0-5 potentially. But then again, Northwestern is a win, Iowa is a win, but Oregon is not a win. UCLA, depending on the momentum they have, is possibly also not a win. So I think that they're a 6. Maybe I can say 7. Maybe I'll give them a 7-win season, but I don't think they're going to be an 8 or 9 win team. I don't think they're going to be a team that Riley's going to be a part of after this year, honestly.
Yeah, I agree. Like he's on his seat's incredibly hot, and that team's got to come out firing and ready to play every single week because the middle part of the schedule. Michigan State, Illinois, Michigan, going to Notre Dame, going to Nebraska. And then ending the season, your second to last game is at Oregon. Like, that's a tough stretch. That's 6 games there where they could very well lose. But I don't think USC loses to Michigan State. I think USC can very well beat Michigan State. I don't think Michigan State's going to be great. I think they'll be improved. I don't think they'll be great. I do see them losing to Illinois. I think Illinois is going to be really good. I think Illinois has potential to break out this year. You got, Michigan coming to town. I think Michigan, once they get their feet under them, Michigan's going to be a force to be reckoned with toward the end of the year. They have a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. If their freshman quarterback can come out firing, who not only is he fleet of foot, but he has a big-time arm. Michigan can beat USC. Notre Dame is going to be tough. Coach Freeman's got a really good program at Notre Dame now. They're better than they were with Brian Kelly. Notre Dame will beat USC. And then USC goes to Nebraska, which is probably going to be under the lights in a historic helmet matchup. Hostile environment. Especially if things are going well at Nebraska at this point. I can see where you're coming from, where they might even struggle to make bowl eligibility this year. I really can. That mid part of the schedule is brutal. It really is. But yeah, I don't know if they're going to finish as bad as 5-7 or 6-6. They very well could. They could finish with 9 or 10 wins. It just depends on how their talent comes together.
That is also true. They could have a really breakout year and Riley secures his job. But I think he'll always be on the hot seat just because of how rough he started there and how up and down it's been and how inconsistent his seasons have been. But I do think on the flip side of what I said, there could be an 8 to 10 win season, but I just don't see it because of that stretch and because of the team that they have been under his leadership. I just don't see them. I think he's out, and I think it's good for everyone involved that he's out after this season. So I think we will see a whole different USC team, but I think it'll be after this season. I think we'll see one season of very rough, kind of underwhelming football, and then we'll see them grow into that next season. But who knows? I could be completely wrong. And honestly, I'm so interested to see what what predictions of ours are going to come true or not come true, because it is so hard to tell. There's not a lot of time left, but there's still so much time, and so many different things could still take place beforehand and even during the season, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. Next storyline. Bryce Underwood at Michigan, their new, he was the number 1 overall recruit in 2024. Bryce Underwood has a ways to go before he locks up the starting job as a true freshman. But the number 1 overall recruit in the 2024 class projects as an immediate upgrade over what Michigan put under center last season. He is a dynamic athlete. We should be the face of the Wolverines offense for the next 3 years. Anything shy of superstardom would be a disappointment for Underwood. But patience is key with signal callers who step into the lineup without any playing experience. This could be a fun season for the Wolverine offense, even if it comes with bumps in the road. I 100% agree with everything there. Michigan has potential to be a really good team. I think if Bryce Underwood comes through, they'll be within the top 6 of the Big Ten at least. As far as standings go, I think that's very possible. Bryce Underwood he's extremely dynamic. He can get outside the pocket, he'll run, and he has a big time arm. What are your thoughts? Do you think this Michigan offense sees a uptick, or do you think there's going to be a little bit kind of like what we saw with Dylan Raiola, where there were bumps in the road along the way and where things kind of slogged along?
So I think we will see him have less personal kind of slower growth and slogging along. But I think we won't see the team have major team success his first go round under helm. But I do think he will have a lot of personal success. And as a player of that magnitude on the football team, when they're having big success, the team is having big success. So I do see Michigan having a pretty good season, but I just think they won't have like a breakout season where everyone is like they're going to the national championship, they're going to the playoffs. I don't think it'll be that type of season. But I think he'll have personal success, and I think that will grow, and the team will see more team success in year 2 for him.
Absolutely. Yeah, I do think year 2 is where that offense is going to make a significant jump for Michigan.
Absolutely.
I think Michigan will get right back to being a top 10 team after this year.
Agreed.
But
I agree with you saying they'll be in that. I agree they'll be in this spot in the Big Ten this year. I think that's right about where they'll be.
I think they'll be 5th or 6th in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that's right around where they'll be at.
Next one here. Penn State goes all in on national championship push. Penn State kept most of its veteran core intact, starting with the best backfield in college football in Drew Aller, Katron Allen, and Nick Singleton. The roster has the same feel to it as the Michigan and Ohio State national title teams did of the last 2 years, and that the majority of its top NFL talent put the draft on hold for a season and elected to run things back for a deep college football playoff push. The separator is the wide receiver room, where transfers Kyron Hudson and Devontae Ross have to be difference makers in order for the Nittany Lions to finally get over the hump. Big question for you. Does Penn State actually get over the hump?
I do think they do, honestly. I'm kind of buying in on Penn State this season. I think they will. I liked that description of it being like a team going all in, players coming back, and kind of mirroring some of those other Big Ten championship teams, those teams that made a push. I think, are they going to win the championship? I'm not going to say they're going to win it all. Do I think they're going to win the Big Ten championship? I'd give them the Big Ten championship. I would say they could win that. National championship, I think they're going to make a deep push. So, yes, I do think this will be a team that will be damn near undefeated, honestly.
Yeah, they're going to be damn good.
100%. If not undefeated, but I don't know. Do you think they have what it takes to go undefeated? What's their schedule like? I haven't even
let me Penn State football schedule. So Penn State's football schedule starts with Nevada, Florida International, Villanova. They have Oregon going to Happy Valley, which is 6:30 p.m. They already labeled that as the whiteout game.
Okay.
Penn State goes to UCLA. Northwestern goes to Penn State. Penn State plays Iowa. Penn State plays Ohio State at the Horseshoe. Indiana plays Penn State. Penn State plays Michigan State. Nebraska goes to Penn State. Penn State plays Rutgers.
So I'm going to give their one loss because I think they're going to be a one-loss team. I think they'll drop one. I think it'll be Ohio State. They're playing in the Horseshoe. I do think they will lose to Ohio State, but I think they'll be 11-1. I mean, that's still a deep push. That's a Big Ten championship berth. I mean, that's everything that those players stayed for and stuck around for. So I'm buying in. I'm all for it. What I love as a Nebraska fan to see us get a win against them, of course, but I think that they are going to be an 11 or 12 win regular season team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But maybe they drop a surprise one, honestly. You never know. And Oregon was the other one I was like, maybe Oregon, but I just don't think Oregon is going to have what it takes to take them down this season.
Right. For sure. Yeah. Penn State, having most of their production come back for an extra year just to try and make a push, I think that's going to pay dividends. I actually do think Penn State goes undefeated. I do think they beat Ohio State in the Horseshoe. Ohio State's replacing a lot, man.
Yeah, that is a good point.
They are replacing a lot. They're going to be breaking in a new quarterback. Their wide receiver core, pretty much the entirety of the Ohio State receiving core got drafted. So they're breaking in new receivers. So It's going to be interesting. I can see them finishing 11-1 or 12-0. I'm banking on the 12-0 though.
Yeah, I can see that.
But speaking of Ohio State, so Ohio State, Oregon face major roster overhauls. What I was just talking about. With respect to Penn State, Ohio State, and Oregon, are with respect to Penn State, Ohio State and Oregon are arguably again the two best national championship contenders in the Big Ten. But unlike the Nittany Lions, they must replace most of their production from last year's playoff lineups. Julian Sayin and Dante Moore generated Heisman Trophy buzz this offseason, but when it became clear that they are in line to secure the starting quarterback jobs, but can those inexperienced signal callers lead their squads deep into the postseason? It is possible, but it is also a big ask, especially when they are far from the only new starters on their respective teams. Big question. We were just talking about Penn State. I don't know if I would put Ohio State and Oregon as the two best shots to win the national championship. I might actually throw Penn State in that lineup too.
Yeah, I would too. I don't think I would put, because of the overhaul, I don't know if I would put them in.
I do think Ohio State and Oregon are going to be damn good teams, though. I do think
competitive.
But
back in the playoffs for sure too, more than likely. But
they'll probably be back in the playoff. But Penn State, Penn State's got something to say. They are returning most of their production from last year. And they were one possession away from winning the Big Ten championship.
True. They were.
That was a really good game.
Yeah, that really was.
I think arguably Penn State's got the highest odds to win the national championship over Ohio State and Oregon. Just slightly higher odds.
I agree.
Just based on the fact of Ohio State and Oregon are replacing like 90% of their production from last year.
I think Ohio State has potential to lose upwards of 3 games. Honestly, looking at their schedule, they open with Texas. I mean, that's a game they could absolutely drop. Could they also win it? Sure. And then you look at Illinois, October 11th. A part of me just feels like, what if Illinois pulls off an upset? It would probably be considered an upset. Maybe not, though, if they're hot by then. But Illinois could maybe pull off a win. Penn State could absolutely pull off that win as well. And then you look at a team like Michigan. Maybe Michigan is hot. That's their last regular game of the season. Maybe they finish their season with a big win over Ohio State. So they could drop 2-3 games, and they'd still probably find themselves in the playoffs, but they'd be a lower seeded team. And so for me, they're definitely not. I think they're going to be a team that gets bounced round 1 of the college football playoffs this next season. That's my prediction for them, is they get bounced round 1 of the playoffs. That's going to be the team they are. A 2 to 3 loss team that gets bounced round 1.
Yeah. I could definitely see that. I honestly think, like, if I go sports betting today, I might put early money on Penn State to win the national championship. Just looking at their returning, production, which it's most of it.
Yeah, that's the biggest part.
Like, obviously, you're going to have other teams up there, like the Ohio States, the Oregons. You might even see Tennessee back in that, realm.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think, man, Penn State might be the dominant team this year.
Yeah, they really could be. That 11-12 win team, they really, really could be. Do you think that's the only 11-12 win team in the Big Ten?
I think Penn State finishes 12-0. I think Ohio State finishes 10-2.
Mm-hmm.
I think Oregon finishes 11-1 to 10-2. So I mean, you're gonna have at the very least 3 10-win squads. If Nebraska can find a way to sneak up there, they could be a 4th 10-win squad. But if we're just talking about these 3 teams, I think for sure these 3 teams are probably a lock for at least 10, maybe 11.
Yeah, I can see that. I think maybe Ohio State and Oregon could be 9-win if they drop a surprise game, but I would definitely say those are the 3 Big Ten teams that are 10+ wins. But I agree. Only Penn State has a chance at going undefeated. Between those, I mean, okay, a chance. Any team has a chance, I guess, within those 3. But an actual chance, a realistic chance, I think it's Penn State that's going to be that 12-win team if there is one.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's going to be an exciting season, man. And obviously, we're going to talk more about the Big Ten, talk about our Nebraska Huskers a lot more as we start getting into the summer workouts. I mean, we're getting close. I mean, I think summer workouts for teams start here in the next week or 2.
Yeah, no, I think they do start the next week, maybe.
And then you've got media days. So there's going to be a bunch of stuff that come out from, the respected college media days and stuff like that.
We should have some pictures if there's anything we need to throw up from media days. We should definitely have some visuals pulled up too.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Kind of want to end this episode on this note here. So a lot of us that listen to this have probably played college football 25. I have put an unhealthy amount of hours into college football 25. I have over 1,000 hours in that game. Well, college football 26 is getting set to release. And needless to say, I am pretty freaking excited for what they are adding to this game. And I'm sure you are too, Montana.
Me too. Yeah, I can't wait. I wish it was July already.
I know. Hey, we're a month away from this game releasing, so it'll be cool. One of the biggest additions to this game is their new dynamic light system, where you can start a game late in the afternoon, and by the end of the game, it's almost dark outside. Like the sun actually will move. You'll see the shadows change on the field, depending on the sun angle. Also, for night games, they added light shows and new entrances for teams.
Did they update Nebraska's, or did they not confirm? I know they updated like Virginia Tech. They updated a few they confirmed, but did they update Nebraska's to your knowledge, or no, you don't know?
So I don't know if they're gonna have Sirius playing during the tunnel walk. I hope they do. That would be really cool.
That would be a dream. That would be
but they added a bunch of new songs that are being played over the PA system in games to make things more immersive, more more real. Like they've got Enter Sandman for Virginia Tech, which is going to be cool. That might be the first game I load up.
Yeah, me too, honestly. It might have to be.
Like, even if I don't play the full game, I just want to witness the walkout of Virginia Tech just to see how electric it is. But they added light shows and drone shows to the night game. The amount of stuff that they've added, plus the Road to Glory is going to have a high school element too, where you can play you can either play moments where you only play, in key moments of games, or you can play the full, 5 games of the, high school. You can get recruited, and they actually have this thing where, how recruits do recruiting videos, with hats in front of them. They added that to college football 26, where you can have your top choices laid out in front of you, and you choose between.
Can't you fake out?
I don't know if they're going to add the fake out feature.
Okay, I saw something. Maybe that was a meme, but I saw that they were adding that.
But they're actually adding an element to where you can choose between, say, 3 or 4 or 5 hats, however many that you want that you're choosing from. You can start your career that way. They're also adding over 300 real world coaches. Over 300 coaches are going to be in the game. Legit coaches in college football are going to be in the game. Matt Rule, Dana Holgerson, and I I forgot the defensive coordinator's name, but they're going to be in the game. Ryan Day, Dan Lanning, James Franklin. All of our favorite coaches are going to be in the game, which is a feature that has never been before seen in, a college football video game. I'm going to read this paragraph here. This is titled More Like Saturday. Immerse yourself in ultimate game day atmospheres with more electrifying sights, sounds, and traditions. Feel the energy of the new situation and stadium-specific music, fight songs, and dynamic commentary, which apparently, according to the people that I've seen play it, the dynamic commentary is a major leap forward over last year, and I didn't think last year was overly awful. Experience new presentation that reflects the importance of each game in the context of your season. Saddle up in Stillwater, hoist the golden egg, and raise the sword as the king of turnovers at Coastal Carolina. We're surrounding you with authentic, unrivaled school spirit, so you always feel right at home.
Man,
dude, I just
it's
reading
more
this,
immersive, which is what it needs to be.
right? And like some of the images, like if you go on EA's page and they show the dynamic lighting system, like Tennessee's entrance, for instance, for a night game, how they have the T lit up, when they have the band form the T in the middle of the field, and just the fireworks going off around the stadium, like,
man,
dude, I'm super hype, and I'm gonna be putting
you might be putting 2,000 hours into this one, bro, and I might be joining you for that because this game is going to be, because that was my one issue about, not issue, but with the last one was it did feel like it, which not like the older ones had more, but it just felt like it lacked some of the immersive qualities of college sports and of those atmospheres that if it had it, it'd be impossible to put the game down, because I had trouble putting the game down as it was. If that stuff is in it and you're actually immersed fully, I'm probably not putting that game down for a while. I'll probably be playing that game up until college football season actually starts. That'll be my little thing that'll get me by until then.
I'll be playing it through college football season too. But one of course, everybody's favorite feature in the game was the drumline music in the main menu. It definitely didn't drive everybody crazy. I turned it off within the first freaking week because it was driving me mad. They're adding marching band covers of various songs, plus school fight songs in with the menu music. So it's not just going to be a drum line clicking about.
It was the absolute, because if I remember correctly, older games always had like music, and it wasn't like just.
So if you selected your team, like say Nebraska, and it obviously each game customizes your menu with like images from Nebraska or whatever. The older games would have it to where it would play Nebraska fight songs. And I'm like, that's what it needs to get back to.
Man, that's
if I load up my Dynasty and I'm playing as Nebraska, I don't want the normal menu music. I want Nebraska fight song music.
100%. I agree. Maybe they'll add that to the next one, hopefully.
Maybe. But they're also adding
just having a different variety, not just because that was torture. I also turned it off right away. I'd always try and then turn my sound. Well, could you just turn the actual sound off, or did you turn your TV? Because I would just turn the sound of my TV off.
I turned the menu music completely off.
I should have done that. I didn't even get that far. I should have.
Because there are some times where I like listening to the commentary. I like listening to the crowd.
Yeah. But just not that damn menu music. That's not
the menu music. The menu music was atrocious because it was just
you might have to turn this one off. Hopefully this is not one you have to turn off. Hopefully
I think there's going to be enough variety to where we're not going to have to worry about it. Another cool thing that they're adding, and I'll end it on this one. The trophy room is back. So whether you're in Dynasty or your Road to Glory, you've got a trophy room to look at all your accolades. So say you win 30 straight national championships, you'll see all the playoff trophies right next to one another.
That's what you want. That's a huge comeback because I missed that.
Yeah, I miss the trophy room so much. But yeah, man, dude, this was a great first episode back.
Absolutely. We were able to cover a lot, even though there's obviously no actual football going on. It was great to be able to come back and start talking more college football for you guys.
Absolutely. And I don't know if we'll be back next week. Maybe we'll take next week off and we'll be back the following week. We'll
Yeah.
see.
But we'll be back before football season starts for sure. We'll be doing a couple shows throughout the summer, definitely, and then fully back once that season gets kicked off.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. So thanks to everybody who is watching. As always, if you have anything you guys want us to touch on, hit us up in the comments, hit us up on our social media, and we'll try and get to everything. And yeah, obviously we will catch you guys next time. As always, this has always been fun. So
Yep.
glad to be back.
Absolutely. It's great to be back, and we'll talk more football with you guys soon.
Yes, sir. You guys have a great rest of your